something changed inside of me. The inner human slowly dead in me. I feel it come alive. The darkness brings me light. There ain't no stopping it, and you will never have from me. Pain of the change. What have I become? A creature of the night. Ruled by moonlight. The pain of the change. This body's no longer mine. Feel wild and free, but caged at the same time. It's time to be human, think human, feel human. A hunger's arising inside of me. The beast is alive and break it free. It's time to be human, think human, feel human. Keep putting more chains on the beast. Hope it don't break loose. You better hope so too. I'm still inside. I'm still here. What have I done? When did this all start? I have become a monster in the dark. A hunger like no other. Running on instinct. What's this creature? Always inside of me. The pain of the change. What have I become? A creature of the night. Ruled by moonlight. The pain of the change. This body's no longer mine. Feel wild and free, but caged at the same time. It's time to be human, think human, feel human. A hunger's arising inside of me. The beast is alive and break it free. It's time to be human, think human, feel human. Keep putting more chains on the beast. Hope it don't break loose. You better hope so too. You better hope so too. You better hope so too.
I was afraid it's going to splash on the screen everywhere. Oh, hey folks, how's it going tonight? Let's bring Chris on. There he is.
Hello.
What's going on, man?
Man, last night was a bit odd, but that's life for you.
What happened?
No, for y'all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of I get this once in a while from people listening to the show, and once in a while they don't realize we've got lives to live, and sometimes our lives get in the way of the show. So,
Yeah, and so before we get started, this is Rob. Rob, you want to introduce yourself, or you want me to introduce you?
Well, we could do it either way. It's an honor and a privilege to be here, and I'm so excited to talk to you, gentlemen. And we're gonna have a great conversation this evening. And hello.
Yeah, DJ Tyler, thank you for that donation. Everybody that donates, it's greatly appreciated. We don't ask it, but we appreciate it. It helps the show keep going. So we got Chris James again, and we got Rob Yox. Of course, last week we had Chris Garitano on the Saturday show, and it's what we're doing. It's a Saturday. Somebody asked me in an email, and they said, "Is this going to become a regular thing?" And I said, "Yes, at least through March." And now it looks like I have so much to do and so much to talk about with this subject because it ties into everything we discuss, whether it's ghosts, cryptids, Bigfoot, whatever. that I think this is probably just going to become a regular Saturday thing. And Rob, you'll probably have to come back at some point, and because you have so much to talk about. Now, I want to say something about Rob before I go any further. You and Jason Bland, and I say Jason in the same sentence with you because Jason has a show that comes on, and it'll be coming on tonight, probably about the time we're ending, and it's called Paranormal Soup. And he's such a good, got a great voice. He's like you, Rob. You have a super duper voice, and I love watching your show. And I listen.
Thank you.
And it's like amazing to listen to you talk. And I'm like, why are these guys not more popular? It's just, I don't know. It's crazy who gets popular and who doesn't. It's almost like some kind of galactic coin toss. But you guys are two of my favorite podcasters, YouTubers. It's awesome. You guys are amazing. And so at some point, I'd like to get Jason on too. I did discuss that with him. I got a few other people that are coming on this coming month. Jason McLean's coming back with Dr. Bertram. That's going to be a good one. And just there's a multitude of people who are going to end up doing this. And hopefully, Chris, James, you'll be able to continue to co-host with me. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I will say this, last night was a mess, and I apologize for that, gentlemen. I really do. I ended up, I had to go to San Antonio for a collector's convention. And I have, for one, I wanted to chase down a story. And so that was a kind of a bonus. But they held it at this place, the Shriners Hall. And it is such a weird building. And when you go toward the back, you just feel this weird energy. So I was walking back there, and I was like, and there's all these pictures of these people that used to be Shriners or whatever. And I'm not messing with them, but as you go further and further back, they all start to look like vampires. Like the pictures were so weird looking toward the very, very end of the hall. You were like, whoa, what the heck? Because of the photographs and the way that they looked, they all kind of just blended in. And we were looking at it, and I was like, this place has a really weird energy. And so we had been there before, but I had planned on coming back. I was just going to stop by and drop something off to my friend Ken Gerhard. And so our colleague and friend Christopher Jordan, he's going to be on the show this coming month. He's a big, alien agenda guy. He was with Ann, and they were doing the sound and audio video, the AV for a conference, like a medical conference down in the heart of San Antonio. So Ann, who is Ken's girlfriend, or I guess fiance, she was with him, and they were working, and so I didn't realize that she was about to be home, and all of us we have eaten, and I thought, well, it's still early, we have time. I didn't realize we were at the Rim in San Antonio, and getting dinner is just like they wanted an hour and a half wait for like this place that everybody was acting like it was some, the Maggiano's. It's a good, it's okay. Here in Austin, it's like I wouldn't even put it in my top 5 of Italian restaurants. But in San Antonio, everybody's like, oh, this place is really, And so, Ken and I were trying to get in. And they were like, it's going to be an hour and a half. And I'm like, what? So we ended up going to the place.
You didn't tell them that Ken Gerhard is an internationally famous TV star?
No, I didn't tell him that. He's got a new project coming up to him. I'm not going to say anything, but he's got a lot going on. And so we were there, and me and Ken are pretty close. We talked quite a bit. So, but we did get through a lot of stuff. 2 things, and then I'll shut up and let Rob start talking. We did confirm the conference. So we talked, and the first weekend of November is when we're going to do it. It is a go. Lyle was on with us. Lyle Blackburn was on with us on Blondes and Booze Thursday, and he had said really and truly exactly what I wanted him to say. Was like he couldn't do it till November. And I have a confession to make. I had spoken to him prior and was hoping that would be the case because I can't do it in the summer. It's just too hot down here in Texas. And Rob, you're up there in Yankee land. But
well, I have
Chris
family in Texas. It gets super hot. Like 105 is like my boiling point. I can't.
Dude, it is bad here.
It's 115 in Laredo.
He's down in Laredo, at the end of the country down there, and it's bad. So like last summer, it was getting into like 110, 112. I'm like, this is ridiculous, dude. And we're not even used to that down here. And so I was like, I'm not going through that now that they say the El Nino cycle's breaking up. So they're like, oh, it's going to be boiling hot down there. And so broiling, whatever. I said, well, you know what? I don't want to broil. So Lyle had said exactly what I wanted him to, which is let's push it to November. And then I confirmed it with Ken, because if he didn't want to do it in November, then I just wasn't going to do it. But we're going to do another one, and it is going to happen either San Marcos or New Braunfels. And I'm very, very happy. And last year, this past one in Fort Worth, we did do an agenda panel. And it was big. A lot of people that were there, they really got into it. And it went for about an hour, the panel, hour and a half, I guess. And we had a lot of stuff to talk about. So that is going to happen. And the other thing is, Ken Gerhardt, he used to sing in a band. He used to be a musician and a vocalist. And he is going to do one of the songs that my wife has written. So that's cool. He's agreed to do that. So that's really awesome. And couldn't ask for better people. Him and Ann, really, really good
I've
people.
heard Ken sing, and I can't understand why he doesn't do it more often. It's like,
I don't know. Too busy. He's too busy. And he's got a little makeshift studio that he's putting together in his house now that him and Ann are together. But I thought it was really cool that Ann's daughter had made a picture, and I saw this picture and I was staring at it, and this is true. And I was looking at the picture, and I was with Anthony and Tony, and we were in there, and it was a beautiful picture. And I said, "Man, where did you get this picture? It's haunting, you know?" And he said that was actually just drawn earlier today by Ann's daughter.
Wow.
And he goes, she just draws. I was like, oh my gosh, it was unreal. And she's only like, how old is she, Anthony? I don't know, 14 or 13. She's a kid. She's just a youngster. And she did this picture. And it was amazing. I was like, wow, that's incredible. But so yeah, that's a cool thing. So yeah, he's gonna be singing. My wife has a song that it's called Providence of Ken Gerhardt's. If you go and look it up, folks, it's a really good song, and that's my favorite too. But she was playing that song on her playlist, and get this, a year later, I didn't know who sang it. And finally I said, who sings that? That's pretty good. She goes, that's your friend. I'm like, which friend? And she's like, Ken. And I said, I know a few Kens. And I was like, Ken Gerhardt? She's like, yeah. I said, whoa. He was just like nonchalant about it. Like, he goes, yeah, that was when I wrote, a few years ago, and I decided, and he recorded it in his house. It was just
that's crazy.
It was epic. I was like, wow, he's a very talented guy. So we ended up, and then we were like, well, we're going to make it. We're going to get back in time to get started. And what ended up happening, I was so tired. I drove 30 miles the wrong way because Anthony was supposed to be navigating, and he's in the back, and he fell asleep. I was like a zombie. I've done this trek 100 times, and I just wasn't thinking. And so we had to turn around and go back. And then I had to stop in New Braunfels. And then it was just like, by the time I got back, I was exhausted, and you guys were tired. And so I apologize, guys. Big apology for that.
A friend of mine who was driving out of San Antonio several years ago, heading to the valley, he did the same thing. He started down 35 instead, I think it's 37.
Mm-hmm.
And they wound up in Catula, Texas.
Yeah.
And that's when they were looking around thinking, this doesn't look right, but it was middle of the night.
It looked like the valley.
Well, when they got to Catula, they realized that they had to jump over. And it's an hour if you go slow. It took them 3.5 hours, I think.
Damn.
And
Wow.
when they got to, what is it, Three Rivers, the next town, everybody's watch was 3.5 hours behind.
Well, they missed time.
Yeah.
Oh.
He went so far as he was set up to go to a hypnosis session, and at the last minute he got cold feet. He's like, as long as I don't know, I don't know. So once you know something, you can't unknow it. And so he backed out at the last second. But yeah, this driving, it can lead to some spectacular things.
That's wild. That's wild. And listen, I'm in this business too, and things come up, schedules go haywire. It was no worries at all. I'm glad to be here tonight. It's going to be awesome because I was really thinking about what to bring to the table. And this agenda, there's different parts of an agenda we can go over, right? There's a galactic agenda. There's a UAP disclosure agenda. There's a truth agenda. And there's technology agenda. There's a spiritual component that lines up to the paranormal and, cryptids and things like that. There's so many different avenues that we can venture down. And I've was listening to a few podcasts today just to kind of hear what's going on in the disclosure, what's going on with the government and the lobbyists that most people don't know, but there is a UAP lobbyist that rides into government, government officials and says, listen, we're shooting to get this information out to the people. And a lot of people don't realize that since 2017, the uptick in UAP phenomenon and UAP article writing via mainstream media has gone up like 1,000%. If you look at like 1947 to, let's say, the year 2000, there's probably about 3,000 articles. If you look from 2000 to 2024, there's probably about 150,000 articles written about UAP sightings, missions that people are going on to uncover what they found in the sky. Also, with the access to the internet, the tools in which to sort of line up information was that an actual airplane that I saw flying over, or flight trackers, things like that are all tools that people use. So it's really wild to think about it. But most people don't realize that the media had taken a cue from the government right after 1947, and this is kind of where disclosure starts. And the agreement, it was a spoken word agreement between the government and, let's say, the three major media channels. It was so that they could report on what they saw, but they couldn't investigate. It was sort of like a truth embargo, and that's what a lot of people call it. Steve Bassett calls it that. It's a truth embargo, which means that if somebody brings something to their attention, they can report on it, but they can't put boots on the ground to investigate it and keep pushing forward, it's wild because a lot of people don't realize that, right? So disclosure now has become a little bit more geared, especially when we're talking about the governmental controls over information when it comes to the UAP, Area 51, things like that. These committee meetings that are set up to essentially explore UAP or UFO, whatever you want to call it. Some people don't like UAP, some people like UFO. Either way, it is what it is. But there has been a lot more endeavor into investigations, which has really been a tremendous thing. A lot of the investigations that happened before the last 3 years were all kind of like a second phase investigation, in the sense of not being in the mainstream. Now we've gotten documentaries coming out. We've got people on the ground. We've got a lot of the people within the confines of government asking questions. So there's a lot of things we could talk about. And again, we can go to the galactic side of it, because there is a contact that is of a spiritual nature. There is a contact of a physical nature, and we can go either way. So it's whatever you gentlemen want to talk about. I mean, we can talk about, reverse engineering technology, things like that. There's a lot to really dive into.
See, that's why with you, Rob, I mean, I've watched your show multiple times, and you've been on my show once with the live stream, but it doesn't do it justice of what you bring to the table and what you know. Which, same with Chris. That's why I like Chris being my co-host, because there's so much to flesh out and bring out. And actually, I'm going to put the offer out here live on the show, Rob. If you would like to participate every Saturday, I'll throw you a link and you can come on anytime.
Absolutely, bro.
So if you want to do it every Saturday, come on. And folks, go check out his show. It's called Full Spectrum Universe. It's one of my favorites, especially when it comes to this stuff, because Rob, of all the people, you get it. Like, you really get it. Both of you guys, you really, really understand. That's what I liked about having the last few guests we've had on here, whether it was Jason McLean or Truth and Bass or Chris Garitano. They're all people who get it. They get the full spectrum. And when I mean full spectrum, I'm talking like how it all ties together. If you want to know what really is going on and go deep, because some people, I'll be real honest. There was a guy who messaged me the other day. He's like, I just want to learn about Bigfoot, Dogman, and I don't want to go too deep. And some people, they don't want to go deep. They want to stay in the shallows, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not against that. but I take you out into the deep water, and if you're ready to go, we're ready to dive, because we dive deep, and it's not just going down a rabbit hole; it's going down, into the ocean. So we go pretty deep. And Rob, I know you do that. And if somebody is not, they're not accustomed to talking the way that it might be a little bit odd or strange at first. I'll put the link up there to his. That's the link to Full Spectrum Universe. You have to check his show out. If you don't, you're really. I mean, there's a lot to unwrap there. Let's start with this. I will say this, Rob. I was watching you one day, and you were going deep as usual, and you were talking about the galactic, like how we fit into everything galactically. And so I think before we can get to that point, we need to take some smaller steps to get to where you're at with my audience. And so let's talk about, instead of talking about our place in the universe right now and going way out into space, let's talk about what's going on right now here. And I have a question. I'll start with this one. What are your thoughts on the agenda and how it fits in just to our planet right now? And what is it that people are seeing that I believe are coming from inner Earth? I mean,
Wow, inner Earth is definitely a possibility, right? There's a lot of avenues in which people are making contact. Some people make contact in a physical form, which is you see something, right? I'll give you a quick story on a physical encounter that I had. I was doing a event. We did an online event, which was the largest online event in the year of 2022 with 121 speakers, called Humanity Unplugged. We went for 11 days straight, 14 hours a day. And when we were doing this, I kept thinking to myself, while siphoning through all of the different speakers that I've had on my show for, I don't know, the last 3 years at this point, I was like, it would be really wild if there was some sort of contact that I have had. And it was wild too, because a lot of the times people that I talk to have had contact, and at that point I had never had any sort of contact with extraterrestrial life at all. And usually when somebody has contact in a visual sense, because that's what I had, I didn't see ET, I didn't see extraterrestrial, I saw a ship, right? My sister has seen it, my mother has seen it, a lot of people I know have seen it. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I explore these things on a regular basis. How come I've never had that experience? So me and my wife are outside. I'm smoking a cigarette. I know it's bad, but we're out there smoking a cigarette. It's the middle of the summer. And all of a sudden I see what looked like a star traveling across the sky. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe shooting star, a plane that's really high. And she says to me, do you see that? And I said, yeah, I see it. And as we watch it travel across the sky, it stops, like a dead stop. It looks like somebody was shining a light down to us, in the sense of it blew up like this and boop, and then it was gone. Almost like it hit like warp drive, and bloop, it blew up real big, and then it was out. And she looked at me and she says, I don't know what that was. And I was like, so you did see that too. It wasn't just me, right? That's what I mean by physical contact. People are seeing all different types of things traveling across the sky. Some of them, I hate to burst bubbles, are our craft. Some of these are TR3Bs. There's all different types of reverse engineered craft that we have been experimenting with for the last 40 to 50 to 60 to 70 years. Now, if you want to take it as far back as you can go back to old articles from the 1800s that are written press, right? Talking about specific encounters that people have had with extraterrestrial craft. And at the time, there wasn't anything in the sky. There wasn't, it wasn't really people flying around in planes. There wasn't commercial airlines, anything like that. So that's a lot of what started to happen. This picks up at 1979. 1979 is the year that things really start to boom, right? Before then, Vietnam, World War II, 1969, when we reach the upper atmosphere and get a spacecraft ourselves, supposedly to the moon, whether you believe it or not. That's not for me to say, right? But
Yeah.
we have satellites going up from that point on. Things take a swing up where people are seeing these things like crazy. And it's really, really wild because this is like a moment for people that sort of changes their lives. They open up this can of worms and then they have to know what it is. And it just to really quick, it's really wild that the cat's there because most of the time when I speak and people have cats, they come to the computer. I have this like innate connection to felines. It's intense. But I've actually done a presentation on that too, where it's a spiritual thing, right? We connect, we can talk to animals if we want. But so there's a lot going on, and it becomes spiritual to people when they have this contact, which leads us to what's happening right now, right? Everybody knows that things feel a little wild right now. Society is a little wild.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot
wild.
of a lot of wild. Not to get into specifics because we're on YouTube, things we can't say, things like that. But really what's happening is there's this moment where things start to really get chaotic and you can track it. And I know this is kind of like veering off the alien agenda a little bit, but this is what, we talk about the moon and things to our local orbit as well. There's a lot of evidence that shows that the moon may not be what we think it is.
Yeah.
And some of this chaos is coming from the moon,
Rob, before you go further, let me just say this. Talk about what you want. I mean, my audience is pretty well geared to talk about whatever because I on my show, I talk about everything because I'm definitely a Fordian person. Fordian is like, that's kind of what I do. I mean, because I think it's all connected. It is. And so the moon, yeah, I've looked up at the moon and I don't see what other people see on the moon. And do I believe that we went there? I don't even want to say it on YouTube, but since you know the answer now because I'm not saying it on YouTube. So I did actually get I had something happen.
I've said it on YouTube, and yes, people do get offended.
Yeah, they'll get really upset because, and then they're like, "That happened." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I did." Mm-hmm. They had a telephone there waiting. It worked out.
That's why the video was. That's why the video was so good. Like detailed, sharp, black, full color.
Everything worked out really good, huh? We just happened to be, with the Russians trying to compete, and so we had to do something, and wow, a miracle happened, right? But I digress. Go ahead, Rob.
So, there is a very big spiritual component to this, right? Mm-hmm. There is a lot of. I like to get deep in the sense of kind of giving context to it too. So it's hard to just say these things without saying some other things to preface it, right? There has been an agenda to keep people in the dark, not only with the alien agenda, but with the potential of humanity, what we are, who we are, how we are, and how we interact with reality around us, right? And we can go back to ancient scripture that talks about, and this is every civilization has a contact with some sort of being that is greater than themselves, that has the abilities to do things that are almost unimaginable at the time. And we can line this text up, which is something I love doing. I love to go back and use comparative mythology to follow specific characters from ancient Sumeria to Greece to Rome to ancient England, all the way up to right now, right? And when we talk about contact on this planet, a name that comes up a lot is Billy Myers. Billy Myers was supposedly in contact with Palladians, which is a star system that's out there. And this gave way into like the galactic conversation. From that point, everybody now had contact with a galactic entity, whether it be via meditation or they were coming to visit them. And I say that to say that there is a lot of BS within that community as well. There's a lot of people telling stories from other people's stories. There's a lot of people using information that was kept under wraps for a long time because certain people wanted it to, and they're claiming it as their own. And it's very difficult to navigate that situation with who's saying what and what's actually true. That's very difficult. But a lot of things change since Billy Myers. Billy Myers puts out a book, and essentially now the world knows that there are extraterrestrial beings, who they are and what they are. So now there are a gambit of people who have come forward since that moment, and it's always the same in the UFO community. One person comes forward and it breaks the ice. And now we have people who come forward and say, you know, I met this, they call them by names even. And while you can believe that if you want or you don't, it's up to you. Everybody's discernment is different when it comes to these things. So I'm not going to say, you know what, go believe these people. But some of them I feel have a real grasp on what they're saying and how it kind of plays out when we look at some of the way that these entities have interacted with humanity for such a long time. And I think that there is an agenda amongst those entities to essentially keep humanity at a downward level. I believe that we used to be more highly evolved.
Oh yeah.
And now we have de-evolved to a point where we're susceptible to things like V2K, which are, you know, voice to skull and suggestive programming and a lot of things that are that humans have used to control humans. So if humans are doing this and there are extraterrestrial beings that are greater than ourselves technologically or greater than what we understand of technology, how they would know the similar tactics to use to keep themselves under wraps, but to also maintain control of this planet from afar or from the moon. You know, it gets very, very crazy when we start to dive into that because they have shot missiles at the moon. And some people don't believe that those missiles actually went to the moon either. Some people believe in flat Earth. There's a firmament. We can't break the atmosphere. I'm not going to say that I'm one of those people. I do believe that there is more to this planet than what we see on a map, but I don't believe the flat Earth model, whether that could turn some people off too. I believe that we are around Earth, that there is a lot of planets out there that look just like ours, and there's a lot of civilizations out there. Now, I haven't had contact with any of them, and a lot of it is speculation, but you know, from the evidence that I've put together, I believe that there are advanced civilizations. And those advanced civilizations make contact with us because they are essentially connected to us through genetics.
Mm-hmm.
And we are what I call an arc planet. So every different type of extraterrestrial, whether it be plant, animal, there is some genetical coding that is residing on this planet. So we are the ark that they talk about with Noah. That's the planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if
Oh,
any
yeah.
of these species start to become faltering or degenerative genetically, they can come here, grab that sequence of DNA and rejuvenate, you know, that specific species or that alien race. And that's why when they look at our DNA, they'll sit there and tell you that 90% of it is junk. But it's not junk, they just don't know how to read it.
Yeah,
So
right there. Hold on one second. When you talk about the junk DNA, I read it was a Discover magazine. I know I was a avid reader of science magazines, Popular Science, Smithsonian. I read Discover magazine, big time into all those magazines. And one of the things I read, Mental Floss is another. I like that one. I know it's, you know, but it's fun to read. I love to read about science. And I've read in the Discover magazine about junk DNA, and they just scratched the surface. They weren't really letting us know, but it was a very important, that because it made my brain go like, why would people be born with wolf and raven DNA? Like, what
yeah,
is that? Why would we have that in our genetic coding? Like, why would it? You know, it doesn't make any sense unless we were bioengineered or something. You know what I mean? And so it really got me going, and it was like 20 years ago, Rob. And I'm telling you, I started saying some things, you know, and I even had professors in college, and they were just like, well, and they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to broach the subject at all. I just was like, why is it this way? But yeah, the junk DNA, that's bullcrap. There is no junk, you know. Yeah, there's a reason for it. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I had to say something.
Absolutely, and it's wild to think that whether you believe in science or religion, right? Whatever you believe in, there is some sort of action or some sort of process that brought us to this point right now. Some want to say it's panspermia, which is a comet hits the Earth, and it becomes a petri dish, and then humanity and animals are created from this petri dish. Some say it's the Anunnaki that created us. You know, some say it's God. It could be a multitude of things, but the chances of a human being being created from all of these occurrences are like 1 in a billion. It's so incredibly fractional that it's hard to grasp the concept of how genetics became genetics and how we are who we are at this point in time, right? And if we're going by evolution, we should be further back than we are right now, because evolution over the last 1,000 years, maybe 2,000 years, has exploded with us being taller. We're being more. Some of us are larger, and it really doesn't make sense. There's like an uptick in our evolutionary, brain patterns. So there's a lot to be talked about there too. But so regardless of however you think, that when we look at history is filled with subcontext of alien life, straight up. So we can look at the Bible, we can look at the Emerald Tablets, we can look at the Egyptian Book of the Dead, we can look at ancient Native American tales where they talk about the Sky Woman and the Great Spirit and how they fell through a hole, and when they fell through the hole, the Sky Woman created life everywhere. So this is where it starts to become more my perception than what is actually provable by any stretch of measure. This is from what I understand of ancient texts. I think that we are sort of the center of the universe because of our because of our arc planet ability, because these extraterrestrials have come down here for so many generations and tinkered with our DNA, and now they've taken us to a point where we are hybrids of many, many, many different races. Every time there's contact, and there's actually, there are other extraterrestrials who didn't involve themselves in that hybridization program and are coming down to mate with human men and women to create their own hybrid strain, which we talk about. You could talk about grays and how they have they have an actual alliance with certain governments across this world that give them the ability to extract DNA and abduct people. There's even talk of that. There's occurrences in the last 50 years, like Valiant Thor, a gentleman who they believe was of the Nordic descent, and he helped us during World War II and through Korea. And there's a lot of contact that's pushed to the side to say it's something other than what it is. So, I mean, if we go into the galactic conversation, life didn't even start in this region of space. It started in a Lyran constellation and moved its way over here via war and the need for resource, which is why we can talk about the Anunnaki. And the Anunnaki weren't even an original race.
No,
they were the
weren't.
melding of two other races to essentially stop a galactic war that was happening. And then they thought by combining these two specific DNA strands, they would make this race of extraterrestrial that was going to quash all further galactic conflict, not knowing that when they put these two DNA strands together, they became very conquering, and
they just kept on going. And then they're feared throughout the entire universe. People don't understand that it was a hybrid. Go ahead, you could tell it.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're saying.
It gets crazy. That's how we got the asteroid belt. There used to be another planet in this system called Tiamat, and because of a war, it was destroyed. Mars used to have life. Now it doesn't because of war.
Well, underground, but that's another.
Well, it still does, as some people say it, but there's the face on
Subterranean.
Mars. The face on Mars was created as an homage to an Anunnaki king that came to Earth, was exiled, and stayed there with his servant.
Yeah, and he was supposedly one of Marduk's, either his ancestor or his descendant. I can't remember how it worked. And I know you probably know the story of Marduk when he was in his wedding was the first Draco invasion that took place on Earth. And a lot of people, I mean, they just do not. I mean, like when you start talking about all this, they're just like, oh, you know.
That's why it gets to like the woo-woo side of it, right? And a lot of this is like, some of it's channeled information, and I get it. Some people are skeptical, and I understand. But we can go back into ancient texts where the people that were alive during the early stages of humanity in this incarnation, most people don't understand that Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mew were before the deluge, right? They were pre-diluvian. And if you don't know what that means, it means that there's this period in time where people don't have any recollection of because of a flood, and mud floods basically wiped out all of existence except for a very, very few. And Atlantis was talked about in ancient Egypt, and then it was brought to
Plato,
Greece. And Plato, Plato wrote about it. I mean, we're jumping all over the timeline right now, but it just shows you how far back extraterrestrial contact is truly talked about, which is right now we're in the quickening of it. Right now, we have science that's helping us basically re-engineer specific craft that have crashed on this planet. Now, here's another point of conjecture too. People believe that there's a secret space program where people are abducted at a young age, turned into these galactic warriors, go out and fight in space, and then come back. And there's a lot of accounts of this. Now, again, I'm not going to tell you whether it's true, whether it's not. That's not what we're trying to say here. We're trying to just say that there is so much that is unknown. And if we believe that the government of the United States, let's just say, is 50 years ahead of whatever they're putting out in the mainstream right now, would it be so far-fetched that they would have ships that would traverse the planets within this solar system?
I mean, and they go through stargates, and that's the thing. It sounds so Star Warsy, Star Trekky, Babylon 5e, whatever. That there's stargates and that there's. But dude, I have had people contact me. Not recently, but several months back, a guy who was, he was in Iraq, and he flat out, his brother got him to talk to me, and he told us as a team, he's like, dude, this is what happened. This is what I saw. And he even found out that there were clone soldiers. I mean, like this is not, and then of course people say, well, he got hit in the head. He has a head injury and blah, blah, blah. My former co-host who passed away, unfortunately, because of the vid, he was always talking about, because he was, 16 years in the military and he was the highest rank you could go as an enlisted guy. And he had a lot of friends in the military, and, there was a lot of people that came forward and would talk to him and tell him things. And I stayed friends with some of these people, and they told us some pretty amazing things because they trusted him, and I can tell you right now, man, the world is not the way it seems. It's not how it looks. And there are people, I'm a name in the cryptid field. I mean, I'm not the biggest, but there's, I'm well known in that field, and they will not go outside of this little, they've put themselves into like a box, and they will not go outside of it to find the answers. They don't. So what they'll do is they're going to mock me and make fun of me because I'm sitting here telling them the absolute truth. And I'm telling them, this is what this is. And you're not grasping it. You're not listening to it because you want to be stuck in that little box. I have never seen a point in time in history where it has been more open, at least in our little several thousand year history that we're allowed to remember. Okay. where it's open enough for us to come out of that box, and all you got to do is step out of it. But people are so afraid, and they are like clinging to their archaic belief of what they think the world is. And I'm going to say this, like, okay, recently the scientists, and this is a crazy thing, 140 trillion a trillion times the amount of the Earth's ocean. They found this on the edge of the universe that we can perceive, and they said it's a reservoir of water 140 trillion times that of our ocean. And now imagine that's just out there in space. It's just there. And people are like, they don't really comprehend what even a trillion is, but 140 trillion times the ocean. Imagine how much water is on our ocean. So imagine how much life could be out there if that's just some water that's floating around. If you were to go really, 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 really deep, like quantum level deep, going out, our entire galaxy could be somebody flushed a toilet and a speck of water came off of it.
Yeah.
And now and that person just walked out of the bathroom not knowing that they just spawned an entire, universe of like stuff, and everybody's there debating, and there's a Rob and a Chris and me talking, and and then by the time that speck of water hits the ground, it's been billions of years for these micronauts that they don't even perceive. You could seriously make a case for something being like that. It's kind of like Men in Black, where the cat had the entire universe right there, on its little, and you're so insignificant.
Or the locker. They shut the locker.
The locker. Yeah, the locker. See, and that's what people think, that it's a big joke, but they're telling you right there that that's kind of what it is. And when you look at like everything that Rob just said, listen to what he just said. It is like, dude, you have no clue, like, just how far back our history goes. We're talking like, okay, you go antediluvian, like you were talking about. That's just one level. That's what the Hindus called the Dwapara Yuga. Now you go further back than that, and then you got the Tacha Yuga. Before that's the Satya Yuga. But then there was another whole cycle of yugas before that, and then before that, and it just keeps going and going and going. That's just here on Earth. So what we're playing with, okay, for example, the Rothschild family, and this is, I'm not going to get all into this, but when the head of that family died, right, and there was like different branches and different people, Eli and whatever. When the head of that family died, he owned 52% of the world's wealth.
It's crazy.
It's a staggering thing to think about, that family had that much power and that much control, and all the offshoots of that family are really who are in control now. But when you look at like that much wealth concentrated, and everything else you see, the Dow Jones, the Nikkei Dow, everything was only 48% of what we're playing with. And you're thinking, wow, there's all these billionaires and trillionaires and whatever. And there was just one family, really just one guy at that time in charge of over half of the world's wealth. So that puts it in perspective. So imagine what all the history of the entire Earth, billions of years, is still nothing compared to the rest. We are a relative newcomer in this. I mean, when you think about it. And so it's like, it's so unfathomable for me to think in this small terms, of the way people think. I just can't do it. I just cannot. Once you've been out there and you've seen like the greater picture, it's impossible just to focus back in and go, okay, I'm just going to live my day-to-day life and pretend like none of this exists, because it's so freaking hard. And I don't bash anybody for having a certain religion. Everybody can have their own religion or whatever, but I just can't do it. Like, once you've seen it, and I do believe in Christ. That is me. I cling to that.
I'm the same way.
Christ came and was like, he tried to tell us, and we are like talking monkeys, dude. And he's trying to tell us, look, there's a bigger picture. And they're like, no, you're a witch. And then they could not handle it. And they do not do, now they can't do it either. I mean, when you try to say certain things, the other podcasters, YouTubers, whatever you want to call them, talking heads, they're, oh, gosh, crazy. Or, well, to me, they're the people who were like, women can't be doing math. I mean, that's the same people. You know?
Jesus.
I mean, that's what they are. You
But
know,
this
they're
is why we're
literally-
outsiders, though. You know, I'm
Yeah.
sort of an outsider, just like you are, because I believe in God, and I was raised from the Catholic faith. Now, again, I don't subscribe completely to the Catholic faith, but my understanding of an almighty being God, right? And everything stems from that. I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Mark Fiorentino. And Mark Fiorentino was a IBM analyst that essentially debugged computers in a vast network of the internet. That's what he did. He found the glitches and corrected them. So his span was, his ability to problem solve was immense. And he took on Einstein's theory of relativity, which became super relativity and unified field theory. And I asked him, what was the one thing that he didn't expect to find? And he said that the universe has an intelligent design to it. It is ones and zeros in a way that I can't even describe to you. And it's majestic and it's ornate, but it's still intelligent in that sense, that it's created in a way that it had to be created somehow.
I wonder how
was-
much of
wow.
people's inability to perceive a lot of what we're talking about is coming out of Hollywood
Mhm.
and the constant bombardment that people have from watching TV, staring at their cell phone, basically being hypnotized into believing what they're supposed to and looking at the rest of us as a bunch of whack jobs.
I call that programming. They
Mhm.
program you to react, to think, and to even preemptively exhaust the options in your head. They program all of that. When we're first born, we're programmed, right? The baby goes to touch the stove, feels the heat, right? And gets burned or is told no. That is a program. So now, for the rest of your life, you understand that the stove is hot. And if you touch it, it will hurt. That's a program. One of the things that I've worked on immensely was deprogramming myself down to the basest level I possibly can. Now I'm not fully deprogrammed.
You're
Nobody
like
can
me.
fully
It's the
deprogram.
same
Right.
thing. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
it becomes crazy because we could talk about extraterrestrials, but there's also ultra terrestrials, extra dimensionals, right? There's layers to everything. And to understand that is to understand your own potential. We live within a third dimensional reality. There is a fourth dimensional reality, Earth. There's a fifth dimensional reality, Earth. Now, because we're in the third dimension, we can't perceive those. Our vision and our hearing doesn't register those frequencies. So we don't see those things. Now, if we come into information that lets us know that it's there, our brain tries to create new pathways to see into those avenues. So it's not just Earth, Moon, Sun. It's Earth 3D, Earth 4D, the Moon 5D, Moon 6D. It goes back and forth, which creates a multiverse. And that multiverse holds all different types of entities from the base one-dimensional level up to the 12-dimensional level. So God would register somewhere within that 10th, 11th, and 12th dimensional density because it is creation. It is all of creation. And we stem from a downward evolution from that point.
And that right there is very important, what you just said, because I was trying to explain to somebody about the Quran. And this is a friend of mine who's Muslim. And I'm not going to, I don't want to sound crass or anything, but he was trying to tell me about the hadiths. And I was like, I actually ended up teaching him. And he was arguing, no, my friend, that's not correct. And I said, go back and read it. The problem is that he does not read it in Arabic. And I told him, I said, every dialect of Arabic, when they retranslated it, just in the Levant alone, there were like 14 different levels of Arabic that they translated it to. And so I told him, I said, you don't think that's changing it? Because it does change it every time they retranslate it. And he's like, no. And they won't grasp that you're trying to explain it to them. So in the Hadith, it talks about the jinn, right? These fourth dimensional beings, basically, but they have the ability to move into the fifth density, and they can spy, as they say, on the angels. Well, that's because the angels live in that sixth, seventh, eighth layer. And so then they can come back and give information to the third dimensional beings, which is us. And so I said, it's not magic. It's just beings that we can't see that are able to go and move through time and space in a blink of an eye, and they can spy on the higher levels. That doesn't mean that they can advance into those levels. And so when he was trying to explain his version of it to me, he says, no, angels don't have free will, this and this and that's. Yeah, that's what you believe. That's fine.
That's why all of them left heaven and went to hang out with the other guy.
Exactly. And so I told him, I said, that's your belief. That's what you think, because you've been conditioned and taught that since childhood. And then he tries to say, well, it's the fastest growing religion on earth. I said, that's because of the birth rate of the countries where it's at. That's as simple as that. They're born into that. And then they do not venture beyond that.
They're programmed.
They're programmed. And Christianity did the same thing for centuries. It was like, this is the absolute word because some people said it was. And then they said that it can't be changed. But we know it's been changed and we know it's been altered. It all has. And so he asked me a very just point blank. He goes, okay, well, why don't these beings go into the other level? I said, they can't. Because if there's a certain vibration that they have to meet. And that is where evil is. And I said, they're evil. And I tried to explain to him about vibration. I said, he goes, what happens if they try to go into the sixth density? I said, they'll dissolve. I'm not joking. And he thought I was out of my mind. He goes, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And I'm like, okay, fine. Don't believe it. Believe what you want. Okay. But once you get it down and you break it down and you really, really grasp it and you understand the nature of our reality, and you don't have to be a warlock, or even a warlock of science to really grasp it. You can just learn, everything is vibration. Everything is sound. Everything is megahertz. When you look at like 888, that frequency, 777, those are frequencies. When you tune into those frequencies, you get good things. Things happen. And so I told him, I said, who do you think Jesus was? I was like, Jesus was somebody who totally understood the sound, the frequency of God. That was what he did. He understood it to the point where he could manipulate it because he was God. He was sent by the divine.
He tuned in.
Yeah. And so I told him that. And so when we got into it on the show the other day, I talked about how Jesus pushed someone off of a roof in Gospel of Thomas. And they're like, Jesus would have been a murderer, and that couldn't possibly be. I was like, yeah. And then he rose him back up because it was as simple as that. I mean, to him, it was like as simple as just snapping your fingers. You can, the body's not, the soul is out of the body, the soul's back in the body. Look at what he did with Lazarus. I mean, these people, they act like if you say something that's not in that KJV, or if it's not in the Quran, or even if it's something that they don't grasp, then you're a heretic and you need to be burned at the stake, and everybody needs to know how evil you are. And it's like, dude, I am not the bad guy. I'm not the evil one. I'm trying to help you. I'm not going to go so far as to say that I'm trying to enlighten you, but yeah, I'm trying to raise your vibration and educate you so that you will understand and be prepared for what's coming. Because when you talk about third level, fourth level, fifth level Earth, people are not understanding that, and they all exist simultaneously. And only the higher levels are able to observe us. We're not able to observe them because it was an evolution that went downward. And when you were talking about the Anunaki, I want to touch on that, and then I'll stop. Yes, that is absolutely correct. And I do believe that they had a hand in creating what we are now. People will say, well, that's horrible to say that. You're saying that they're God. I'm saying, nope, the Anunnaki are not gods. They are not my gods. I'm saying that they were just as fallible as us. The only difference was they were created on that higher evolutionary level. Okay. And then they created us, and we were a slave race. But God, the true God, took mercy on us. And that's what he sent the Holy Spirit and Christ to pull us out of this, which is now the Kali Yuga. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, the Anunnaki set themselves up as gods because they were such a conquering race, because somebody, like you said, tampered with things and created them, and they were never supposed to be. They were never supposed to exist. My theory on that, now it shakes out a little differently for me. I believe that they were built as a buffer against the reptilians, but that is an argument that you could go back and forth whether or not, you know, I mean, they were
I
a problem.
agree with that. I agree with that because
Totally
they
a
were
problem.
well when Tiamat, there was the Dragon Queen of Tiamat,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially she was at war with some of these other races. Now, some of these other races were also reptilian.
Yep.
So when they created the Anunnaki, they were like 80% reptilian and 20% Pleiadian and Arcturian. So they
Mhm.
became more reptilian in the way that they conquered, because in the beginning of time in this part of the universe where entities flourished, there was the Patel, and the Patel would become the Lyrans, but not the Lyrans that we know now with the lion manes and all these, feline looking extraterrestrials. They were advanced. They were the ones that broke down a 48 code based DNA, and they made physical humanoid type beings. And from that, the rest stemmed, right? The Dracos were created in their image to compete against them. In the very beginning, and I have to go back very, very, very far for this. This is the beginning of our universe. There was what we call unity consciousness. It was like a ball. Let's say it's like a sphere, playing out its most inner fantasies of life, knowledge, whatever. It was just there. Now, we could be in that unity consciousness right now, and this is what's playing out around us, but we don't really know. Because of the way our universe is set up, there's a dualistic nature to it.
Mhm.
So when it's electricity and magnetism, right? That's the dualistic nature. So when this unity consciousness is building up its or playing out its fantasies, it's creating energy. It's creating, and there's a boiling point. And this boiling point creates a big explosion. And it cascades into two separate pieces. One they call the mother, one they call the father. There is the dualistic nature in its inception in this part of the universe. So father is shot all the way across, and father is electricity, mother is magnetism. So electricity is shot all the way across the universe. And mother, which is magnetism, stays in its spot. And while they used to be a unit, they long for each other again because they want to create that unity consciousness again. This is how we get on this evolutionary path of ascension, is because of their travel to try and find each other. So mother decides to stay in place. Magnetism decides to stay still, which is kind of why we have magnetized morphogenetic fields around a planet. And father, who's electricity, usually surges and tries to surge its way back to where mother is to create that connection again. And when they get back together, they don't essentially come together to form unity consciousness anymore. They like their independence a little bit, but they want to be near each other to, kind of coalesce their energies. But when father, because of all the trials and tribulations he had getting back to mother, he had to amass certain amounts of energy outward to protect himself from some of the radiation, things like that. So when he gets back into contact with mother, he's shining brighter than mother is, right? And this is how this sort of plays out within our own bodies with our masculine and feminine energies. So father, to even out with mother, basically takes some of his energy and casts it into the void. And the void is not space, it's a pocket in a dimension where excess energy goes to stay and stays there forever. So when he casts that energy into the void, it creates a being. Some will call it Lucifer, which is not Satan, it's different. Some will call it amongst many things. This is the adversary. It doesn't become the adversary right away because it resides within the void. And this is why some people say extraterrestrials are demons, because some of them are. There are demons out there. And while they may not be extraterrestrial in the sense of coming from another planet. They're extra dimensional, right? So basically, this void creates what we know as Lucifer. Lucifer incarnates many times leading up to right now. But Lucifer creates the Draco because he's angry with mother and father for abandoning him within the void.
Yeah, and the void, and he spent, according, and then I want to interrupt, but I want to add to this. He went into, a lot of people call it hell, but that's not hell. It was the abyss.
It's the darkness.
Yeah, it's the darkness, the dark abode. And that is where it's like, when people go there too, when they astral project and they slip out, you can go into the abyss, and it's not somewhere you want to be. People describe, and they've described to me, being bitten, attacked, choked, and being yanked and thrown all over the place. And I'm like, yeah, because those beings that reside there, they know you're there, but you don't know them. And it would be like being dropped into the ocean in the dark. And if you only knew what these things were that were doing this to you, they're toying with you, because they could literally do a lot more. And
They're
so
called Azaruses.
yeah, there's
That's
a
what they're
lot
called.
of stuff that can happen to you when you go into the abyss. And that is what is going on at CERN. They did a little pinprick into the abyss, which was the stupidest thing they could have done, because people always think that they're more, it's basically like, you know, if you were to give a toddler a machine gun and say, here, go whatever. And that's what they've done when they left us here to you know, like, you know, the technology was left behind for us to play with. And so I think where we're at right now is a tipping point. It's a very dangerous point. And I really get aggravated with these people with the benevolent space brothers are going to come and fix it all thing. That's not going to happen. They don't care. They're interested in our resources and us as a source of energy. They don't give a crap about our thoughts and hopes and dreams. They don't care about what we do on a daily basis. That's why people get abducted, because they interrupt your life, and they don't give a crap. And I've just gotten into it. I was at the UFO conference with Chris James, and I got into it with this guy about the benevolent space brothers. And I'm like, well, you can believe what you want, but I don't believe that. And he goes, well, I don't believe that Dogman is a good thing either. I said, I never said it was. There's idiots that say that like, yeah, I had it on my property, and it was bringing me rabbits and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, well, don't accept it. But there's a lot of unstable things out there that are not good. And people have no clue. They just have absolutely no idea what they're playing with, what they're messing with. I wanted to answer somebody's question here. Just another guy says, if aliens were ETs, why do so many flee in Jesus' name? Because they're not all good.
Right.
Jesus' name can cast out, you know, any number of interdimensional, extraterrestrial, or whatever. I mean, because like he just said, they're not all good. And I like that you pointed out that Lucifer is not Satan. That's two different things. Satan is a title, and it also is the Shaitan, which are a race of beings that were basically formed here from an offshoot of what we were just talking about, and they set themselves up as the bosses or whatever. Lucifer is a universal thing, and he was actually created of sound and light. That is what he is. It was a being, and people don't understand that, and he rebelled, but it goes in time with what the Gnostics talk about as the demiurge. He thought he was alone, and he said, I've been abandoned, and so I'm going to create a universe. And it was an offshoot of the real deal, a counterfeit world, if you will, where he was in charge. And of course, if you go and you look at the Yazidis, the Kurdish Yazidis, I don't know if you guys have ever studied other religions, but the Yazidis, they actually call him the peacock god, and that he was pardoned by God, according to them, the high level God, the 11th, which is what they say, which is like basically saying that he's up the highest, whatever, down the chain. And he said, okay, you've repented, I forgive you, you're in charge of this world. Now, some people call him Yaldabaoth, and then others even say he was Yaboa. And so it depends. And those are two different things. That's another thing people don't understand. They don't get into it. And unless you can understand, and I'm trying to learn better Arabic and better Hebrew, Arabic in particular, because the book of Job, there's people who argue, say this isn't true, but it is true. The book of Job was written in an ancient dialect of Arabic. It was an offshoot of Aramaic. And so it was not written in Hebrew. It is not a Hebrew book. I don't care what anybody says. That book predates Genesis. Now, when it talks about the Shaitan and the Elohim having the communication, those are two groups. The Elohim are the Sky Council people, basically. And they went down and they told the Shaitan, they said, if you're doing so great, then why is our guy over here worshiping us and not you? And so then they made a bet. They're like, you want to see if we can turn him? And they tried. Now, it is an amazing story, and he did not turn. Incredible story. Another thing people get really, it gets under my skin is the whole Abrahamic faith, saying that Abraham was the original Hebrew, original Israelite. No, he was not. He was Sumerian. He was from Ur. That is a city, region, whatever, of Samaria. And then we get into the whole, and it was him and Sarawati. That story goes all the way back to the Tamil culture, which predates Sanskrit. And you can find it there, and it's there. It says the same thing. And then they're like, oh, yeah, that's a Middle Eastern Levant. No, he didn't even live in that area.
Nope. This is the lost knowledge of humanity, is what it is. And if you go into the texts of all the world's religions, there are references that point you to these points and these interests, right? So while we believe in God, and God did create us through a line of successions, right?
Mhm.
We are created by the divine because the divine resides within us. So with that being said, all of these entities are also created by the divine. So in essence, they are our brothers and sisters in the sense that we are all created from the same points. Whether some have created us or others created others, doesn't matter. We all reside within that field. And when it comes to extraterrestrials, they have an agenda. So while they may seem good right now, or they may seem good when somebody talks to them, the Anunnaki were the good guys for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And people still, there's this great divide within the spiritual community that some ride with Enki, some ride with Enlil. Every extraterrestrial should be seen in a shade of gray.
That's right.
Until they have proven themselves otherwise.
Yeah, and
that
Lil,
will never happen.
That's right. And I'll say this, and Lil, by some tellings, Enlil is the one that destroyed us by the flood. And they say, well, God destroyed us by the flood, because he wanted to get rid of all the bad. Well, Enlil just wanted to get rid of everything altogether because he was sick of everything and he didn't want to deal with it. And that goes back to Tiamat. It all ties in. And I'll say this too, Tiamat, it's very specific what she did. And she created like the Scorpion Man. She created Bigfoot. Basically, it describes Bigfoot to a T.
Yep.
That Tiamat created, And then she went to war. There was a civil war, and she went to war with her own offspring. And Marduk, she was very angry with him. Her husband had been killed, and so she went ballistic, and she created all these different beings. And if you go down the line, you see those are the cryptids we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And I tell people that, they're like, what is this? What is that? And I actually was invited on another show. And before I went on that show, I told the guy, I said, what you were trying to get me to talk about is something that I'm very capable of talking about, but your audience may not like it. And so when I started explaining it to him, it was a guy and a girl, and they were like, oh, okay. And then they didn't call me back. Then a couple weeks go by, then they tried to call me back and get me to come on the show. And I said, really, I don't really know you that well. And that's not to be rude or anything. I said, but I'm not interested. Thank you. But because their audience just was not geared towards that. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And it happened again with this lady from Britain. And I was like, I don't think your audience is geared that way. I just don't, And so she had messaged me a couple times, and I just was not interested because you have to have the audience that's ready to receive the information. If you start talking like we do, Rob, they're just going to be like, oh,
so true.
So Bigfoot true. And ghosts, and they don't, and not to be rude or anything or crass, but there's levels to this stuff, and you have to really understand, and you have to be able to read, and it also goes into other languages too. Like you have to be able to understand and read under other languages, and if you can't understand that, well then, sorry, and some of these people who will pop off and say things in my direction, I'm like, dude, please. Stay in the small kid sandbox. That's where you belong because you're not ready to understand what we're talking about. when you have educated yourself and you've gotten out of that little circle that you just talk about all the time, the same thing over and over again, then you can come out of it. Then maybe you're ready and we can discuss things. But this, to me, this is actually the Saturday show we're doing on Sunday because of what happened, yesterday. Thanks to Ken Gerhardt blowing everything up. I'll blame Ken. Ken even said, he was like, just blame it on me. I was like, yeah, it's Ken's fault. Yeah. But I'll say this, on the Saturday show, this is the big kid show. If you've been following the show up to this point, you've learned enough to know, hey, let's go out into the deep water. But if you're not, then stay on the porch or don't watch. If you can't agree with it, or if you got something that you just can't understand, ask a question. If you're going to be insulting, which nobody has tonight so far, but sometimes people will be insulting, and some of the dumbest things I've heard, just coming out of people's mouths, and you're just like, oh, the world's only 5,000 years old, and the devil hid dinosaur bones from. I'm like, oh, dude, please.
Carbon dating is built on a logical fallacy.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Regardless of what anybody says, the carbon dating, I could tell you that a leaf's 600,000 years old. You're not gonna. There's no way to confirm that. Honestly, carbon dating doesn't work. But it's wild too, because just like you said, I have a lot of peers on. Me and you are in the same boat, right? And I have a lot of peers within the spiritual community who, because they agree with what people are saying around them and they don't question everything, they get all these spots on all these different shows, coast to coast, all these places. They have yet to ever even reach out, because I won't abide by every little nuance that they say. And because I ask questions and I question everything. And some people don't. Some people take a lot of others at their word. That's why I kind of gave the warning in the very beginning of this conversation that, you don't have to believe it, right? Everybody's perception on this is going to be a bit tailored and different, right? Because of your perception, because of all of the things that you hear coming from your exterior stimulus and things like that. But if you see it in a certain way, that's right for you. That's how this goes. Because there is a spiritual component to all of it, the ability to decipher that information comes from within. Because we're like projections of each other, but we're individuals that our frequency is a little different from each other, but we're all part of the same community, which means that our frequencies are still within the same range of each other. So we're all part of the same collective, but there's an individualistic aspect to it, which means that the information is going to funnel through you different than other people. So if somebody doesn't agree with you, it doesn't mean that you're right and they're wrong, or wrong, whatever the case is. It may be seen through different lenses. And we have to be able to understand that too. But at the same time, you don't have to follow every last thing that anybody says to a T. There can be variations of it from what your findings are to what their findings are. And that gives us a more robust understanding of the entirety of the conversation, because I believe the universe works in that way. Through each individual's perception, this information is going to bring some new light to the project. And that's why it's so important to create these communities and delve into these topics, because everybody's understanding of it is that much moniker different. And I think that's incredible. That's the beauty of it. And that's the intelligent design of it. It's wild. It's wild to see people fall into these lines and these boxes so fast, that because they want to be a part of, and not because they want to actually understand. And that's a detriment to your potential, to my potential, to the entirety's potential. That's, not to pontificate like that, but it's
no,
true.
people will take it as pontificating, and we're not proselytizing either. We're not trying to convert anybody, just, putting the information out there, and you do what you want with it. If you're ready to hear it, you're ready to hear it. The world, obviously, at the time when and I'm not saying we're anything, but when Christ was trying to teach people, the world wasn't ready, and they just were not hearing it. And when you try to tell people he said that it's going to happen over and over again. Like every time somebody tries to say what's really going on, there's going to be this block there. And that's unfortunate because, and that's going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening. There is a block, and you may only get 10% of the people to really understand and wake up to what's going on in the reality. Because, in the alternative too, if you get too many people, then you're on the radar. And that's another thing. You kind of don't want to be too far out there. I just want, my listeners and the people that I deal with to understand and know what's really going on, because they want answers. They want to know what these things are and why they happen in the way that they happen. And to me, it's become simplified, and it's not simple, but it's simplified in the way that you can kind of look at it and say, here's a general idea of what we're dealing with. And to me, that's the ultimate goal for me and my listeners, which is why I thought it was so important, Rob, to have you come on. I really wanted you at my conference, and I know, we couldn't make it happen, but we wanted to have you come down and speak, and Chris too. It would have been awesome to have you there. We call it a Dogman conference, and we do talk about Dogman quite a bit. There's several speakers that came on. Lance Hightower was a speaker that a lot of people really enjoyed. Bettina Moss, a bunch of people talked about Dogman. Myself, but we also had a lot of people that were there just talking about Bigfoot, talking about the alien agenda and ghosts. I mean, because that is what we do. We talk about all of this. Somebody said in the comments earlier that they had an NDE and they ended up in the abyss. And I'm like, yeah, that can happen.
Absolutely.
And it's not a fun place to be.
No. I actually got my start in paranormal radio. That's kind of like, where I started talking about these types of things. And listen, sign me up for the next conference. I'll be there in a heartbeat. I would love to come down and talk, whenever you'll have me, because I think that it's important that we show what information we have and lay those cards on the table. Even when we talk about, the Bigfoot and Dogman and all these different, there's levels to it, right? There's even advanced, I think that there are physical Bigfoots that stay within the physical realm. And I think that there are some that are advanced enough to slip in and out of dimensional space and time. And that's why they're so coveted and you can't find them when you go to look for them sometimes, because they don't want to be found. They're able to just flip that switch and you can't see them anymore. They're in a different reality or different plane of existence. We're just not able to perceive that, dimensional density, or maybe they can fluctuate in a way that we can't see. And just to go back to what you said, just to kind of circle back to with the angels, right? We talked about you said it yourself, you said the de-evolution of humanity. At one point, we were able to ocularly see the fifth dimensional density and the sixth dimensional density while not interacting with it. We could communicate with it, which is why they were able to see those angelic beings that were etherical in nature and of the light, which they will tell you is an angel, right? That's what an angel is. It's a being of pure light that sits at the hand of God to do the bidding of God. Now, if you're a primitive person and you see this ball of light that starts to communicate with you, you will first think that it's angelic in nature, for sure, right? It's some higher echelon entity communicating with me. What some people don't understand is that angelic blueprint resides within you. You're part of that divine, and you're able to tap into that within your DNA. And that's the part of the extraterrestrial agenda. They don't want you to know about the people or the races of entities that have achieved those levels, because we're all part of the same tree, we're able to do that too. And now, while it may not be within this lifetime or right now in this space and time, there is potential for humanity as a whole to get there.
Yeah, and this stuff, like, it goes really deep, and it gets deep. And I have been at war, at various times, and since I've had my channel, and it's been people, and I just, and I'm not even using this as an insult. It's people that don't understand. They just don't get it. They don't grasp it, and they think that by throwing rocks at the castle that it's going to make the drawbridge come down for them to invade, or I don't know what they're doing. It's like like Monty Python, and when the Holy Grail, when they run up and they hit the castle with the swords and run away, because it's not slowing my growth and it's not stopping. And the people that need to be out here saying what they got to say are here saying what they got to say. And so I just look at that as like part of, the rabble that you're going to deal with, because there is a lot of talk, and this is where I'm getting at. There's all this para-unity and we're going to be unified and all this other stuff. Then people need to start reaching across the aisle. And I'm not talking about just within the cryptid or ghost community, or I'm talking about the UFO community needs to interact with the Bigfoot community, and the Bigfoot community needs to interact with the ghost community, and they need to work together, because this stuff is all connected. And there is a huge problem with all of these communities. And I guess I'm kind of seen as a threat or a heretic to all of them. And I've even been called a menace, and I'm like, a menace. How am I menacing you? Because your listeners are thirsty and they're hungry. They want the truth, and I'm giving it to them, and you're mad because you can't do that, or whatever little gimmick you have is not working for you. And that's a problem for me that I've faced since the beginning. And Rob, we've been friends for a while now, and we've talked
a long time.
And we've talked about, I mean, these people, let them be salty menaces. I don't care. I don't care, because at this point I got to move on to do bigger and better things and not put any more time or effort or energy into it. I don't have time for it, because where I'm headed and what I'm doing is going beyond the Bigfoot, Dogman, Ghost, UFO community. It's going beyond that. We're trying to bring real unity, not just a bunch of talk about it, which is why when this one lady, she seemed to be the only one that was really upset at my conference, and then she went on a little campaign against me, called me a heretic and everything else. She brought me a story which I didn't believe. I didn't. When you can sit at a conference and look across the table at somebody and they tell you a story and it's not adding up, I can look in your eyes and see that you're not being honest. So I was polite and I said, you know what, I'll get back with you, which usually I just straight up tell people, but I'm at my conference and I don't want to be rude, cause a bunch of problems. She could be somebody who she did turn out to be unstable. And I just said, look, I'll get back with you. And when I did not, then she went and just attacked me. And she said, why do you have, and she asked me, Anthony, Tony, all of us, she said, why do you have all these weirdos here? And I said, weirdos? What do you mean by weirdos? And she says, well, you have like a lot of Bigfoot people, which I can accept that, but this is a Dogman conference. And why do you have people from the UFO community and the ghost community and all this other stuff? And I'm not here for that. I'm here for Dogman. And I said, that's because it's all part of the same deal. It's all part of it. She was, well, I disagree. Then she proceeded to try to tell me a story about a gnome or an elf, or I don't know. It was ridiculous. Sounded like Elfo from Disenchantment. And I said, really?
Why?
I was like, oh, a green elf that you see. Yeah, okay. And the way the picture she drew of it, I'm not joking. It looked like the Harry Potter, the elf that hung out in his closet.
Oh God.
It really
gave
was.
Him a sock and Dubby gave Dubby a sock, and he was his friend, right?
Yeah, it was Dobie. And I looked at it, and Anthony
was by the end of the movie.
Oh my gosh.
I wonder how much of this infighting that goes on between these different groups, how much of it is being orchestrated by those that want to control the world?
A lot. But it's also ego. It's also ego. Like people see others. Like I don't believe that my biggest adversary is the community itself. I think the establishment doesn't like me because some of the politics that I have a political show on Rumble too. So, but the politics, and it's more so that my end goal is to empower humanity, to break the spell, right? Hit that threshold that makes people ask questions. The establishment hates that. And Josh, that's why they send people to you too, to try and skew you from that path.
Yeah.
Because they want you to fall in line with the people that they've subjugated and subverted to spew the nonsense that they talk about, like Dubby the Free Elf, right? Like, really, and this happens to me too in the messages. Somebody says, hey, can I tell you a story real quick? And you say, okay, yeah, sure. Let me hit me with it. Give me all you got. And you read through it and you're like, wait a minute. Things are not lining up here. And then they're like, all right, well, have me on your show. And you're like, I have a responsibility to try and protect the people that want to come and listen. So I maybe we'll have a meeting first, and then you can talk to me about this encounter or whatever you had going on, and then we can discuss it, because you have to vet those people first. Because if you don't, sometimes you'll end up with somebody who's a little off the rocker, and they come on the show, and it kind of throws people off a little bit, and you
You
try
wind
not
up
to
with
do that.
JC from coast to coast.
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah, it's just, and it gets wild. So you got to, but there are plants that come through because they're sent there to discredit you,
Mhm.
and you have to sort of sift through the crap to get to the good of the information, and that's kind of where a lot of time gets invested into just sifting through and making sure that we're appropriating the right people to put in the right place to really give them the recognition that they either deserve for bringing this stuff forward, or to essentially further this unity of humanity. And that's what it comes to. It puts us in a tough spot sometimes, because some people will have just anybody on, and I know people who send me people all the time, and I'm like, I I don't think it's going to be a good fit, and they hate that. They hate that, and it's like, well, you may buy it hook, line, and sinker, and I don't, and I'm sorry for that, but it's just the way it is.
Yeah, and if definitely when I've watched your show, you definitely are someone that you gotta put the big boy cap on, because it's not. If you just kind of like you're like at the water park and you're in the wave pool, and all of a sudden you get into the deep end or something, and you're like, whoa, this is not, because to the average person, they could get lost real easy in what you're saying.
Very
And
fast.
yeah, very fast, and you think very quick, and you throw things out there. I love it. I love it. It's a stimulating thing, and it gives food for thought. And it's like, dude, I just been wanting to do this for a while with all the people I've had on so far up to this point, and you definitely were one of my targets. I was like, I got to get Rob on.
I appreciate that. I love these
Yeah.
conversations that we have. And
Yeah.
if anybody goes to my channel, right, start with Galactic Beginnings. There's a 17-part series that goes through the galactic timeline in detail. And then from that point, we go into specific areas of that galactic timeline. And it's not just history, it's a spiritual understanding of this information as well. But we go into the electric wars, we go into the galactic wars, we go into how Earth became Earth right now, all the way from that unity consciousness I was talking about before to right now, and to the disclosure movement. And we're actually going to have Paul Wallace come on soon, and
Oh
he's
God,
doing
Paul, I love Paul. He's a good friend of mine. I love Paul.
awesome. The Invasion of Eden is coming out, and it's
Yeah.
going to be epic. Trust me.
This fourth book, right? Is that the fourth one on it?
That is, yes, the fourth.
The fourth
I
one.
believe the fourth. Yes, but this is it. This book is going to change your perception just from reading it. I have my hands into it now, and it is intense.
It's already out?
No, it's not out yet.
Okay, I was about to
Not out
say,
yet.
dang, because it's out. Because I need to get in touch with Paul. He's been on the show. We were supposed to do a 3-part series. We did a 2-part series. We misnamed it, and that's not. I don't blame my team, but I don't name the shows, and so they named it Bible Theology, and I was like, oh man. And,
Well,
and
he's
I
a
didn't
little bit
even
of
know
that
that's
too.
what it was.
He's a little bit of that too.
He is. He's an Anglican theologian originally, but whenever we were doing the show, we weren't talking just about Bible theology, and it didn't get a lot of views. It got like several thousand or something. I said, this is not correct. It should have got a lot more. So I said, we got to change the names. I was just literally going through the names and making sure that they were, I'm really busy. I didn't have time, and I didn't notice, when we released it. So I went back and I said, this is ancient civilizations. We're talking about all kinds of things. I mean, we got into all kinds of stuff, and it was supposed to be a 3-hour, like I've said before, my hand's been broken from boxing. So I do 3 like this. I can't lift this finger real good. But it's supposed to be 3 hours. We ended up doing 2 because I got confused on the time. Like it's 16-hour time difference.
Oh, it's a big difference. Yeah.
Huge
like
difference.
when we're at night, it's their morning. So it's
Yeah,
like I have a
way
lot of guests on from Australia, like Salrita. and Stephen and Evan Strong. And
Mhm.
actually, Stephen and Evan Strong changed my perception on where man sort of came out of in the beginning. Like a lot of people believe it's out of Africa, but I believe it's out of Australia. And I could go into a
That is
whole
very possible because oh my
diatribe
gosh.
why,
Okay,
but
I'm glad to hear you say that because man, okay, and then if you look at the Aboriginal, the people there, and they even
that's
have
Aboriginal stands for the original in their
Mhm.
language.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And when they talk about dream time, it's really just the before time, before all this mess, you know. And I was talking to someone who saw near Ruidoso, New Mexico. They saw a giant lizard type creature that sounded like megalania, and I was like, "Whoa, dude!" And so then somebody on the show hit me up, and I used to my not one of my siblings. It would be I guess stepbrother would be my stepdad's son. Used to work there in Australia, and he had a really interesting job. And he had given me some stories about feral people and these people that
Yeah.
live underground, and how there's actually water underneath the middle of Australia. People don't go there, so there could be anything there they don't know because nobody goes there because you can't. It's like if you go too far out, you die of thirst, and there's just not a way for them to really to get to the But the Aboriginals talked about these people that lived within the earth. I mean, it's crazy, and that these giant lizards come up out of these holes, and they're still there. I don't care what anybody says. That is like the lost continent, as far as I'm concerned. And of course, Lemuria. If you look at Lemuria and the Lemurians, I do believe that part of India was broken off,
Yeah.
and what we have left is Sri Lanka. And so I thought about writing about that, like maybe writing
That's
a
the
book about
Kumandi
that.
Empire.
Yes.
It was down there.
Okay. Yeah. And so there's so many different aspects to this. And I thought it was interesting when the Tamil, when the Civil War, I'm not going to get into the history, but they fled to Sri Lanka, the Tiger Army, as they call it, and they began to fight. And I was like, in reality, if you go back far enough, it's actually their land. But I don't want to make people mad from Sri Lanka, but that is the descendants, and they were the actual historians of that region. And then I'm going like, well, Lemuria was right there. But how do you say that to people, because there's no proof of it that we can say other than we know it was there because of the records of it, the ancient
Well,
text.
Stephen Evans Strong have a excavated fossilized skull that is more resembling of primitive man and extraterrestrial than it is of modern man. And the extraterrestrial was buried in the same ceremonial way. Hold on one second. Let me hit my coffee on again. The same ceremonial way that mankind was buried in.
Mm-hmm.
And if they take this skull out of their house, they will be put in jail for 5 years. I've seen the paperwork, or they'll be fined $3 million or both. And what most people don't know is that Mew, Australia, and Lemuria were an L-shaped continent.
Yep.
So even if we're saying that the Aboriginal people were in Australia, it doesn't mean that they exactly were in Australia. Australia was a part of Mew. So also during the Atlantean, Lemurian, and Mew cataclysm, people retreated underground, which is where places like Agartha and Inner Earth come from.
Mm-hmm.
And because they were under there together, there were actually 3 separate types of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
They were 3 pockets of human beings that were not genetically related, except for the primate part of their genetic genome.
Mm-hmm.
So when they went underground together, that's the coffee machine. Sorry about that. When they go underground together, they intermingle, which is the Anunnaki section, the Pleiadian section, and the more spiritually advanced sort of 5th dimensional beings, the evolved section, right? Lemuria was sort of like this middle ground between the Sumerian, Egyptian Anunnaki and the Mew, which were the de-evolved beings that came from the 5th dimension, because the 5th dimension had an issue where there was a cataclysm in their Atlantis. And this is where people basically use stargates and portals to make a bridge so that they could capture, they could reincarnate, not capture, but they could reincarnate souls from the 5th dimension from the past and the future to save people. It was like a bridge for them to save people, but that's kind of a little bit more of a deeper conversation. But these three cultures went underground. They intermingled, and that's where modern humanity comes from, was the intermingling of these three different types of hominid human beings from these extraterrestrial body groups, which is why we have all that DNA that they say is junk, just to go full circle. And they came back to the surface in Australia. And when they did that, because Australia was outside of the purview of the deluge, and it was sort of close enough to the circle of fire where the temperate climate made it so that humanity could live. It was one of the first places to not have that nuclear winter style Atlantis cataclysm. It was like it dissipated over Australia first. And there's actually geological evidence of this. And I, off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly if it's in the rocks or in the mountains, but they can categorize the layers of when that was not under the cloud of the nuclear style explosion of Atlantis, and when other places closer to it were. And they were able to geologically show that the soot and the ash had receded there first. So humanity sort of came up from underground when it was safe at that point. And then they started to spread because Mew was still there. They were able to go to North America, which is why linguistically Native Americans in America and Aboriginals, they share a common language and common mythology. If you look at their mythology and their languages, they're very, very similar. They share linguistics, which is indicative of a common ancestor. That's what that means. If you're, you know, if you're really going into the linguistics of what's being said, you can track anything, because language and sounds and verbs all have a certain frequency that's carried through civilizations. So that's sort of where all of that comes from. And it's insane to say it, but I truly believe that because of that fact, that's where man came from first. That's why they're called the original people, because they are the original manifestation of us style humans.
Yeah. When you look at like the Lemurians, like supposedly, Mount Shasta is a stronghold for the Lemurians. And now somebody asked me this question, and they weren't being snarky, but it started a little bit of a controversy in one of the groups I'm in this big group and on Facebook, and they said, well, ask him, he's an expert. And I'm not an expert, but they, because I participate in the group on occasion. And I said, look, I'm not an expert on the Anunaki, but I know a lot about our history of where we came from. And look how bad, and just to say this really quick, look how bad Graham Hancock, one of our friends, colleagues, whatever, he's being attacked viciously. He's just going back 30,000 years. Imagine, it's wild. And he probably would. When I see Graham on the show, I'm thinking he wants to say more, but the monkeys aren't going to let him. They're like, ooh, why you talking like dodo?
Right.
They're throwing their feces at him, and he's like, okay, but he has to put on kid gloves and baby them because they're nuts and they're academics that are supposedly so smart. But anyway, I said something to somebody. I said, Lemuria. I was like, they got there via underground. And they said, oh, so you're saying they went all the way from where India's at? And I'm like, yes, they did. And I'm not smiling or laughing. That's the truth, because we were all connected at one time. And it wasn't really that long ago. They will lie to you and tell you that that's impossible, but that's not true. And when you look at the history and the languages, get this. One of the things that I learned is the closest relative of the Aztecs. Now, they were a loose confederation. I've done a lot of study on these people, indigenous people from Mexico, which the Aztecs weren't originally indigenous to there. We know that they went there and they just kind of kicked everyone's butt and became the boss. That's kind of what the Cossacks did, or the Tartars did. They went to this region. The Cossacks are more related to the Scandinavian people than they are to the Slavic people. Their more DNA is more Finnish, So we know, and the Hungarians too. They're from Finland. That's their closest relative. They don't really belong in that region. What happens is they travel to that region. They liked it. They killed all the inhabitants and said, we're just going to set up shop here. And so that's what warlike people do. I know because I got Cossack blood in me and I know the history of them. And I got Comanche in me. They did the same thing. Well, the Aztecs have their closest relative is from India.
Yep.
India. And so people are like, and look at the language of Nahuatl. It's a very, very close to two different dialects of Indian. And so whenever you start going down that rabbit hole, I mean, it gets really, really deep. And it's like, you know, why are some of the Native American tribes, why do they resemble other people from clear across the other side of the world? Well, like you said, the Anunaki side of it, Samaria, Egypt, the Levant, that whole region, that was theirs. That was their region. That was their land. And so when they took their people to the New World, and this is going to sound crazy, they brought them to the New World to mine for gold, silver, copper, precious metals, things like that. They knew that what they were looking for. And they created us to have a lust for gold. They did.
Yeah.
They did. And even to this day, we want it. We want to possess it. I know the power that gold has. People think I'm wearing this because I want to look like Mr. T. No, I know the power that it has to protect you. I know the power that it has to help you. I know the healing properties of silver. I know that if you put a silver coin inside of a milk, it won't spoil. I know that you can take silver and when you have a sore throat or you're sick, I put silver in my throat. I'm telling you, I'm not telling people to go do this, but that's what I do. Okay. And colloidal silver, it's very antimicrobial. It has a lot of very powerful properties, these metals. So what ends up happening, they eventually leave. They leave. Nibiru, maybe, I don't know, wherever they went, they left. They walked out the Stargate and said, we're good. You know, we're going to monitor from whatever. Then these people have no clue where they're really from, nor do they really know where they actually came from. And then there was another influx of people who would be considered Polynesian, who were from that other side, from Mu, or Mew, as you call it. And so that was the influx, and they were the newcomers. But there were already people who were related to the Persians, related to the Akkadians. They were related to the Tamil. They were all the Sumerians, and they were all these different regions. And somebody had asked the question, said, well, why didn't all the Native Americans just all live together in one country? Because they weren't even all the same race, dude.
No, they did not like each other.
They didn't like each other because they
I
weren't
have
from the
Iroquois
same
blood, and they hated the Cherokee. And even though they hated the Cherokee, they shared linguistic ancestry with the Cherokee.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a while to bring the five nations together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the stories, just not to jump in and cut you off, but one of the stories
No,
that
go ahead.
shows the connection between these ancient civilizations, that this is part of the alien agenda. They don't want you to see these connections, because when you see these connections, we start to bring our guard down against each other, because we've all been interconnected for so long. We're focused on threats from space. We're focused on threats from people across the world. But really, we're all from the same tribes. We're all from the same peoples, right? So there's this story that the Aboriginal have of a coming prince. And the coming prince wrote cuneiform hieroglyphs in the caves down there that Eric von Daniken went and checked on.
Oh, yeah.
And when he went down there, he said, those are Egyptian, right? And there's a Egyptian tale of a prince going to the homeland, not dying, but going and traveling to the homeland. And when he travels to the homeland, he leaves the story of the Egyptians in the homeland for the peoples that now reside there. So there is a connection between the Aboriginals and the Egyptians in this story, because they both speak of each other's culture by reference, not so much by name, but by reference. And it becomes very, very clear that they are that the hieroglyphs become a communication device between these two people that are on basically very far apart, opposite ends of the world, but they talk about each other. And it's really, really wild to see it, because if we go to the ancient Native Americans If we go to ancient India, if we go to the African Bushmen, we go to the Aboriginals, they all have a very similar story of creation. There are two entities or three entities, and they reside from the sky. They rip up the tree of knowledge in some way, shape, or form, or they travel from somewhere to a place where they seed life in some way. The woman is is she's revered by the people, but she tells them of the man, the great spirit, whatever it might be in these tales. And the woman is what breeds life into the animals, the birds, the plants, and then eventually humans. And whether it comes from a cave, whether it came from the waters, whether it came from somewhere, they all are referencing the same type of story. We can go to 16 different ancient civilizations that talk within the same terms, maybe not the same exact terminology, or it might be a little off in certain ways, but these stories all line up. And when we use comparative mythology, we can see that there is a common thread between all of these stories. Now, is it the same story being told through different cultural perspective, or is it 16 different instances of the same type of creation?
Yeah. Wow. And see, we've talked about that on the show too. I mean, like you have all these different myths and mythologies, and they're all connected. You know, like I've said this on the show, and I'll say it again. I believe that Hercules was a real guy. It was a myth that was built around someone who had the power of Hercules. And it says in the Bible, if you're a believer of the Old Testament, it says it right there. It says that mighty men, men of renown, that's who they were because of the sons of God. And then, of course, the book of Enoch is the long version of Genesis 6. And then I believe Thor was a real guy. I believe he was one of the Nordics, and he was, you know, like, I think he was like maybe a quarter breed, or, you know, a partial, you know. And then you have all these different, like Perseus, and you have all these different beings. Achilles, they were basically gods, demigods. To us as normal people, they would be gods. Somebody had asked the question way back, Rob. They said, do you believe that the Draco are 20-foot tall, this and that? I will say what I believe before, and then we can go around the horn here. Yes, I believe that, because I like this comment here. That's actually my brother. Become ungovernable. Hey, brother, what's up? That's my actual older brother. But so one of the things that I will say is, when you talk about the Draco, they were just as big and tall as the Anunaki were, and they were all big and tall. And the original Adam, you know, which a lot of people claim that was in Bulgaria, that was their Roswell. And there again, a Western colonial power swooped in and took them, just like the Serbian werewolf that we covered, the sarcophagus of a 16-foot, whatever it was, you know, or 12-foot, whatever. But it's crazy when you look at these beings. Yes, of course they were taller and bigger. And in the Hindu version, it actually verifies that too. Because in the Bible it says they were giants. I mean, that says they were giants. The Hindus say the same exact thing. They said that in the Satya Yuga, everybody was humongous and tall. And then, you know, the Tatya Yuga, people got a little bit shorter, lifespans shortened up a little bit from 100,000 to 10,000, still a lot, but quite a drop. And then in the Dwapara Yuga, the lifespans got to about 1,000, which the Bible bears that out. Methuselah, Noah, they all lived 800, 900, close to 1,000. And then, of course, now we top out at about 100. Once you get past 100, your body just starts to dissolve. So
Yeah, it's over.
And it's over. Yeah. So, and it's all 10%. And then, of course, it also talks in the Vedas and in the Bhagavad Gita and all these other books. It says that morality is reduced, you know, by 25%, to the point where we're at now, where 3/4 of the population, you could look at it two different ways. Everybody is just a quarter good, or every fourth person is good, and the others are
that's
corrupt.
crazy to think about, dude. That's crazy.
It is.
I think the Dracos are all different sizes. They've interbred with so many different races that they have different subset species that reside within their family. There's the Alpha Draconis, which are the 20-foot tall ones. There's the Beta Draconis, which came to a different planet and evolved a little bit differently. Then there's the Anunnaki, who are 80% Draconis that come from 3 different lines of elite Dracos, right? There's white ones, there's green ones, there is a variety of Dracos like there is a variety of humans. And that's how it is everywhere.
There's more reptilians, and then somebody had asked this question too, and I've heard this. I was in a group and they were doing a chat, and I jumped in on it. And I can't remember who exactly was talking. It wasn't anybody that we know, but it was a small, like a Facebook thing or whatever. And I was just watching. I want to say it was Michael Anthony, but I'm not sure if that was him or not. But anyway, somebody was talking, and the person that was talking, they were explaining. I don't agree with what they were saying because they were wrong, and that's why I don't want to be mean. But I said something in there, and I said, look, the reason that there are more reptilians than mammals is because it's easier they evolve first because it comes from that back of the brain. I mean, you have different parts of the brain, the amygdala. I mean, and so you think everything kind of runs on this reptilian brain. That would be the first thing to come, and then mammals are a lot more advanced. And so they don't have as much time to become whatever. And I do believe that they did spread out throughout the entire galaxy, across the universe. And they did it through the use of stargates. And I think that they were given a leg up because I think that their dad was kind of the one that facilitated all that. And they spread out everywhere. Now, the Anunnaki, somebody asked me what they looked like. If they looked like reptilians, no, because they had that reptilian strains of DNA, whatever, but they made them to look more human-like. And that was, but by doing that, they had to take more mammalian DNA, which gave them a leg up. Now they have that really, really nasty temperament of a Draco, but then they have this other, more sentient thinking, more advanced ability. And it was never meant to be that way. And so that is where the war part came in, where they were kind of like how when they created us, we were like, well, you're not our boss. They did the same thing to their Draco overlords. Is like, well, you created us and thanks, but we're going to kill you now. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. I mean, and you made a big mistake. Now, I said this at my first conference, and I meant this, and you can go to Daniel Jones on the Vortex and see my lecture on there. Daniel Jones is another one that's going to be coming onto the show along with Christopher Jordan and some other people coming next month. We talk about, somebody had asked the question, why would they make us so diminutive? And I was like, that's a no-brainer. I mean, if you were going to make a slave race, why would you make it as big and strong as you? That would be a huge mistake. So they made us like Smurfs. So, I mean, very simple. I mean, you don't want to behave. They could just punch you across the room. It's not hard. One Anunnaki could smash 20 humans with his hands. I mean, look at Gilgamesh holding the lion like a pet. And then he's got the Kopesh, Egyptian style sword, whatever. When
David
you look
and
at that, David and Goliath. Yeah. I mean, it's you're not going to want some, person, that you can't control, that's big and strong and smarter than you, that's got more strands, of DNA than they should really need, because they don't need, they just need to do what they got to do. Now, did I believe that there was genetic tampering within the human race that created all these other things? Yes, I do. And I think that that's what this junk DNA that they were talking about in these science magazines, trying to convince people that, oh, that's just junk DNA. It's just a coincidence that we happen to have animal DNA that floats around in us. No. And I don't believe that there are any coincidences. I don't believe that at all.
It's wild too, because they don't want us to explore what that DNA might be, because it might lead us into the stars, right? Going back to the Anunnaki, they wore so much gold and they were so opulent because of what they were mining from that slave class, that the slave class saw their skin as almost golden tint, because it was a reflection from the sun on what they were wearing and how they guarded themselves. They knew how to coalesce their energy to that gold, and it made them more powerful for it. And At first, they had other what they called a Gigi, which were lower level Anunnaki who weren't as big as the Royal Anunnaki doing the mining. But then they complained and they were ready to revolt because they were the same size. They were like, listen, we're not doing this anymore. What do we get out of this? The ruling class gets everything, which is sort of a microcosm of what's happening right now.
It always happens. That's what always happens. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because like the whole, when you read the story, it literally came about because people were being like stepped on and they were like, why are we doing all this work? And like you said, what are we getting out of this? And so they said, okay, well, we'll create this slave race and then you can be in charge of the slave race, but we're still going to hold you responsible for whatever mess ups the Smurfs do, which led to another big problem. And ultimately, I do believe that that was the downfall. It wasn't our species like revolting. It was what you call them, the Ajiji. They were the ones that were like, okay, I'm not responsible for these turds you made because they're not smart. I mean, it's true.
True.
They're like, they are not smart. You made these little hybrid monkey people and they're just not getting it done. And so that was a problem. And then there was a revolt. And eventually they said, this is too much trouble. It's more trouble than it's worth. And they left a bunch of them behind. They just said, deal with it. You're done, whatever. Around the same time that this was going on, the Reptilians, I guess if you might correct me on this, it was the third, I want to say it was the third interaction or invasion. There was a massive base underground and they had come up and were trying to take down the remnants of the Anunnaki. Yeah. And so they were just like, to hell with
They captured some of them and altered their DNA to make them more reptilian, which is what took over eventually. Yeah. And when we see these reptilians now, some of them are offshoots of that, right? And it's basically they look more human or are able to mingle amongst humans, altering certain things of their DNA. And that's why you see certain people when they're like, oh, that's a reptilian. Look, he's shifting. And you see their faces changing on TV because they're able to mingle amongst us in that fashion because they were altered to be that way. They were altered to be just like us now. And it's wild to see it.
It's even weirder too when you think about that. A lot of them don't know that they are.
Yeah.
They get this transmogrification or whatever. They're trying to make it like, okay, what's crazy is like certain frequencies when played will make people shift and make their eyes pop out and stuff. And there's a bunch of people reporting reptilians. And now when you talk about it or you put it in the title, they put a disclaimer. This is a fictional whatever.
Oh, yeah.
They don't say that about Dogman. You start talking about Dogman or werewolves, they don't go, hey, this is a work of fiction. They don't say that about vampires, although a lot of these are vampires.
Because they believe people believe that those subjects are so far-fetched that they could not possibly believe that it would be true out of the gate, which is crazy because there's more people who've seen it, have experienced it, and have come forward with evidence of it that they should take it just as seriously as everything else. It's crazy.
Yeah, but yet you have it all the time. You have people on the news. One of my little nephews a couple years ago, he took a quick DVR video, and I watched it. I watched it with his mother. I was sitting there, and the guy's eye, he's talking, and he turns his eye, and you could see it. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
But it was on a DVR, and like when I tried to put it on my phone, it didn't come out good. Plus my phone's a piece of crap. And believe it or not, I dropped my phone yesterday. It's the first time I've ever had my screen cracked since 1999.
I did it today. I dropped my phone. I was like,
never do that, dude. Man.
I drop mine all the time. I drop mine all the time. Never cracked the screen, but
ever. Huh?
I don't have an Apple.
Well, I don't either. But mine cracked for the first time ever. I've never had a cracked screen phone, and I've always gotten onto my
I know everybody. Everybody that owns an Apple, the screen is cracked. Every single one. Here's my brand new Apple. Cracked screen.
Got a big gash in it. You're like, oh my god. Somebody's been scrolling through TikTok too many times. You drop that thing, bro.
Well, on the phone, we've talked about that too. The whole thumb scrolling thing. That's an addictive thing to get everybody. Ooh,
Not,
But that's
not
also
much.
why the internet's great too, is because you capture certain things and then they become viral where everybody sees it, which in turn starts to keep people on the questioning path, which is ultimately what we're all trying to achieve, right? I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, but they knew it would be, and I believe that they were trying to create the establishment was trying to create the internet for just their use,
Mhm.
but it was given to the people, which now it's going to be their most adversarial tool that's going to take them out of or off their pedestals.
That's what always happens. Like we were talking about the Draco creating the Anunaki, who ended up being their biggest problem. And then the Anunnaki created us, which ended up being a problem. I mean,
Yep.
you know, you create your own demise. You literally call forth your own whatever. And where some people may call it a tulpa or a reasoning or awakening or whatever you want to call it, a reckoning. I mean, that's what always happens. You're destroyed by the tools of your own foul nature. It always happens. It's karma. It's the will of dharma. It's everything. It's what it
That's
is.
why I don't like AI. You kidding
Oh,
me?
I don't,
You
dude.
ever seen
No.
Terminator? They
Yes.
literally foretold this, my guys. Like, this is
Yeah.
crazy.
And that's what's happening. So before you guys run, I wanted to say one last thing, and then I'm going to let you guys go because I know you got to get up tomorrow. Anthony, you ready to play that? I had something that I wanted to debut here, and it's only a couple minutes, but
Let's do it.
my wife is making music and it is wonderful. Like, I cannot believe how talented she is. This is not AI. This is her writing. She writes poetry. And she had a book of about 200 poems, and she's a sensitive person, and she, with me anyway. And she's like, I didn't think you would like it. So I read some of it. And it was great. And I said, this is awesome. And some of it, I thought this could be music, and she can write that. So she has all these ideas. She's a music loving person. So she created several songs. This one, I believe, I got a guy calling from work here. I'll call you back, friend. My friend, actually, he's an Egyptian. Just called me right now. We were just talking about Egypt. That's funny.
That's right. His ears were ringing.
Yeah. So we're gonna play this now. This is a based on true accounts that people have said, and the earliest of this goes back to the Bear King legend from Marble Falls. Now, near that area, it's in between there, and I believe it was Bertram. They found a cave with Viking runes, and some people believe that those were carved there hundreds and hundreds of years back before colonization here. So I came up with a theory on my own that the Bear King could have been a Viking descended person, because a lot of people in that region have these Scandinavian names, and that maybe he came, and that's what people are seeing, this bear man, this shifting. We had Guadalupe and Jenna Perry came on the show, these different people who've talked about what they've seen and said it looked like a werewolf, but more like a bear mixed with a man. And I'm not talking about a bear standing on its hind legs, like a bear man.
Right.
So the Bear King is the legend. And so my wife, she made this, she wrote this song. And this is the only one I can say that I had a little bit of creative input in. And I gave her a little bit of inspiration. I came up with the idea for the Mummy song, but I didn't have any real input, or that she did it all. But this is what the Bear King, this is the song. So I wanted to play it for the audience, and you guys can listen, and it's debuting, and it's going to be on Paranormal Soundtable on our new channel, along with the Mummy and the La Llorona. That's the Mexican legend of the crying woman. But here's the Bear King.
From long ago, the berserker traveled.
Who was singing?
That is one of the artists, and I don't know his name. I know Violet Helm does all the female vocals, and there's two different guys. The guy that did the Mummy one, he's from Australia. This guy, I don't know.
His name is Michael Spencer.
Michael Spencer. It was just given to us yesterday, and that's going to debut on Paranormal Soundtable in the next week or so. So I hope everybody liked it. What'd you guys think of it?
I loved it. I think it was like it felt like it was getting us ready to like wage this informational type of advancement of what we're doing. It was sort of like encompassing of what we do, right? Like, and I felt it. And that's why in the beginning I closed my eyes, because the tribal drums always get me like, it gets me in this place where I'm like, whoa, you know, like, you know, you want to like flex your chest muscles and your shoulders, and just, whoa, kind of go into it, you know?
Yeah.
And I liked it. I loved it, actually. I think it was great. I want to hear it again.
Yeah, it's good. I'll send it to you guys. You guys can have a copy of it. Yeah, it's a, and then she's got another one coming out pretty soon. It's about the Skinwalker legend, and it's got some you know, some really good like native, you know, chants and drums and stuff. And that's like, I think it's going to be awesome. So yeah, that one's good. The alien one's there on Paranormal Soundtable. The vampire one, that's a really popular one. The ghost one, they're all good. The werewolf, everybody, it's on there. Ken Gerhardt is going to be doing the vocals for the new werewolf song. So everybody go check out Paranormal Soundtable, and we're just going to be dropping them, you know, until there's like, I think 12 for the first album, which if you want to call it an album, it's a collective, and it's like paranormal ghost type stuff, you know. There's another legend I want to do of the Headless Conquistador. And so, yeah, there's a lot in the works for Paranormal Roundtable. So for everybody.
How about the Headless Horseman of Texas?
Oh, yeah. El Bandito. Is that what you're talking about?
El Muerto.
El Muerto. That's it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. We should do that one. Yeah.
It's from our area.
Yeah.
Well, from our area. Not Rob's area, but it's a legend, and it's still alive today. Some kids in McAllen saw him in a field next to their house maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah, that would be more of that would be more Texas too, because the Conquistador legend is from the Devil's Backbone, and so that's something that I had a dream about one time when I was there at the Devil's Backbone. I saw this in a dream. That was a dream. I don't know. I can't say. Maybe I was out of my body, though. I know.
It's a vision.
It's a vision, yeah. But so we had a great time tonight, folks. Everybody, thank you to our guests. Rob, if you want to come back next Saturday.
I'll be here.
We'd love to have you on, and we're going to have another guest, and we can go around the horn and talk. Chris didn't get to say much today, I know, because Rob's got so much to say.
I was busy listening to Rob, and I was trying to put his thoughts into my brain, and it's the old adage, I have a thought and you each have a thought, but when we share our thoughts, then we each have three thoughts. And he was so deep that I was having lots of thoughts, and my mind just wasn't making words. So I enjoyed the show thoroughly.
Yeah. Rob's always good, man. Folks, go check him out. Tell the people where they can find you, Rob.
You can find me on every bit of social media that there is. We're on YouTube, Full Spectrum Universe. Just go check it out. Put in Galactic Beginnings. Start there. We're heavily shadow banned by the establishment because of what we talk about. And it would be a great help if you could share, like, subscribe, and let's boost it to the moon. We're all in this together, and the only way we get out of it is together, because we are the ones that we've been waiting for. And if not us, then who, right? And the information becomes the activation. I know you hear a lot of people in the spiritual community say, I'm going to activate this in you. I'm going to activate that. The information becomes the activation. When we dig deeper, we figure out exactly who we are. And when we figure out who we are, we figure out where we're going. Because a man or a woman that's lost is a man or a woman who doesn't know where they come from. So let's find it together. We're all here for the same journey, just from a different perspective. And I'm down to ride with everybody.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to let you run, and I'm going to say some final words to my audience. Thank you for coming on, guys, and I will catch you next time.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So, folks, what did you guys think of the Bear King? What do you think? It's not the Liver King. It's the Bear King. That's what they called it. That was what they called it back in the old days when this thing was taking people and kidnapping them. And sometimes people would go missing. It was a werebear. That's what I believe it was. And so that's my little version of what it could have been. A Viking that just ended up being here, and maybe he assimilated into the local tribes. And he staked his claim here in Central Texas. Everybody seems to want to move here now anyway. So I hope everybody enjoyed tonight. I appreciate everybody. Thank you. So many people that donated. I posted the donations on the thing here. I like this StreamYard platform. And somebody asked me, they said, why don't you use this for all your shows? Well, the reason is because I have to be able to go back and forth between Anthony and Tony. And it's all convoluted when you do that on StreamYard. It's a lot of work. It's, and so I just don't have time to do all that. And Liberty $20 donation. Thank you so much. This is an awesome weekend show. Great talk, food for thought. Liberty, you were an awesome dude, man. Thank you for always supporting the show. And let's not forget, the wonderful Rita Burnett who came through. We had a talk on the show earlier before the show about maybe after the spring, we're just going to cut back to maybe one live stream a week, because it's just not really, we had a good crowd tonight. I was happy. We got over 400, but Fridays aren't hitting it. They're just not hitting it, man, in any shape or form. And people are telling me that they don't like guests. They want me to retell people's encounters and not have guests on. And a bunch of people are saying that. And I'm like, that's not good. We have to have guests. Okay. I can't just sit up here and retell stories, because believe it or not, I'm not just a storyteller. I'm not a story reteller or an encounter reteller. I want to have stimulating conversations with my guests like I did tonight. And I just want to be able to interact, and I want to bring you the best that we can. Now, very quickly, I'm just going to say a few things for the 380 people that are still in the chat. I'm going to tell you something. To me, this war is over. I don't care anymore. As the song says, I'm ready for war. I don't care. I'm built for it. But I don't really care what these people say or do anymore. And I thought about it, and I'm like, dude, it'll never end. For them, it'll never end, because that's what they want. They want to stay relevant, and I am their ticket to relevancy. And that ticket is no longer going to be punched. I'm done. I'm not going to respond anymore. They can spread all the rumors and lies they want. You guys know the truth. You're my hardcore paratroopers. And I don't give a damn what these people say or do, because I got bigger and better things to do. I got big fish to fry. And all they can do is sit there and lie. I read some comments earlier from the fools that are, remember, folks, they're playing in the little sandbox. I don't care how many fake subs they got, okay? They're playing in the little sandbox. They're not on our level. They're not on our time. It's just, we're doing things that nobody has done in this field, and we're going to continue to do it, and you are my base. You are my base. And we're going to bring you top quality information from top quality guests who have the information. I'm going to continue to build bridges and bring the worlds together, because that's what needs to happen. At this next conference, we're going to do the same thing. Tentatively, first week of November. That gives me time. That gives you time to save up, buy tickets, and get your butt down here to Texas and meet all my good friends. And and this is a conversation last night I had with Ken Gerhardt, and Ken put it in perspective for me. I'm not going to repeat what he said. Okay, it's not for everybody to hear, but it was just like, You know, there's people that he's a very nice guy. I'm not going to speak for him. There's people that he's not fond of, whatever. But at some point, you have to look at it and go, where are they at, and where are they going, and where are you at, and where are you going? And that's it. You know, that's the whole deal. Nothing they've done has shaken us or defeated us in any way. We continue to grow exponentially. I will continue to fight the good fight. I will continue to defend those that I believe are being wronged. Like I said before about AI, Mike is not my best friend. We're not buddy buddies. And Mike has not spoken to me about this situation that's gone on. But other people have. And I think it's wrong. Wrong to me is wrong. Right is right. And the things that these people have said and done, they'll turn on each other at the drop of a hat. They'll turn on a dime and turn on you. They don't care. They don't care. The way that people treat their own will tell you everything about that person. You profess to be, friends with somebody or cool, whatever. You're good, and then you attack them. I mean, you turn and attack them at the drop of a hat. Then they'll come back and attack you, and then it just keeps going on and on and on and on. And I'm just done. I'm done with those people. I will promise you that I will continue to call out these derelicts that cause problems. If they attack you, my listeners, I'm not going to sit back and you let you be attacked. The problem with this guy that's really voodoo daddy, when he was at war with the guy that I used to work with, I'm not even going to mention his show or his name. He's not involved. He was used to that guy sitting back and just letting his listeners get dogged on. And I won't do that. I won't let him go in on my listeners. I won't let him attack. I am the shepherd of my flock. And I'm going to protect you. My wife wrote that song, The Bear King, and she says, when I was writing it, she's like, I started thinking about you. And I thought it was funny. A werebear named Wolf. Funny. But, the whole point, though, that I'm trying to make is that there will never be a time when I'm going to rest on my laurels and just let them ravage and rampage and take and destroy what we've built or hurt my listeners. I'm going to do anytime my allies, friends, family are under attack, I'm going to be there. But I'm not going to drag it out, and I'm not going to put it on the show because that's what they want. It's fun. It can be to clown them and show them for the buffoonery that they are, because literally clown shoes, as one of my jiu-jitsu friends calls it. He says, they're wearing clown shoes, dude. What are they going to do to you? They're not going to fight you. And if they do, they're just going to be utterly and completely humiliated. He's like, they can't do anything. They're just going to sit in their little bizarro world corner, my words, and flap their wings. That's it. They're going to crow and hem and haw. And for the few smooth-brained, koala-brained people who will actually sit there and listen to their dribble and their garbage and their absolute lies, they feel sorry for them. You're lost. And you'll always be lost. Now, here lately, AI has actually been producing some content. I still do not watch their show, but I'm happy that they have gone on, they've moved on, and they're doing their show, and they're getting their listeners back up, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And Mike has declared for all of his people to stop, to cease and desist, quit attacking. It's over. It's done. He's done. It's a done deal. Another one of them has said that they accepted my apology. It remains to be seen how long that lasts. But until he, does something, I'm not going to acknowledge him in any shape or form, because that's, I've said his name one time, and that was a mention that Vulture was attacking them at one point, because that's what they do. They'll attack each other. They'll attack me. They'll attack anybody. They seem to thrive on this stuff. We just had a great show. We'll have another great show, and I got a surprise for you because I missed the Sunday, and I had to move it up a day, so we missed Saturday, which should have been yesterday. This should have been yesterday. I'll be on the air tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, I'll be doing the Sunday show tomorrow night, and then you'll get the Tuesday show and the Wednesday show. Then Thursday, I'll be on Blondes and Booze. Friday, we have a great guest coming on. He's going to talk about all kinds of interesting stuff. Hopefully, you'll be there. Saturday, we'll do this again. We'll have Rob Yax on along with our guest, and then we'll do it all again. We'll do it on Sunday. It just keeps going and going. I'm sorry yesterday I couldn't get to here. I tried. Was just so exhausted when I got home. I couldn't make it. I just couldn't make it. My wife's like, "You got to stay home. You're falling asleep." She's like, "What kind of shows are going to be if you're up there falling asleep?" And she's right. And I want to do right by you. For the people who donate, for the people who are on the Patreon, for the people who listen, give us views and likes, and they subscribe. I want to bring you the best. You deserve it. You're my paratroopers, and we're going to write a song. I'm going to get Nellie to write a song when she's done with all the other stuff she's doing about you, about being a paratrooper. Would you like that? An anthem? A paranormal roundtable anthem. It's possible. Everything is possible. What we are achieving now, you're seeing this. When I talk about something, I'm not BSing you. I'm telling you the truth. I say something and people go, that'll never happen. This guy's so full of crap. And they did that with the first conference. 500 people showed up. Not quite. 470 something. And then, of course, the vendors. No, I'm not counting them. I'm talking about, but over 500 at the second conference. The numbers don't lie. And all the vendors sold out. Not one person has turned me down when I said, "Hey, do you want to be part of the conference?" Nick Redfern won't be there because he's got a family thing going on. Pray for him, please. Pray for him and his father. His earthly father is sick. But, yeah, it's a go. And we're going to knock it out of the park again. There's no doubt in my mind. After 2 of these highly successful deals, I don't doubt that it'll be great again. The 3rd book I'm shooting now for maybe June. People, the reason is because I was halfway through the MK Ultra and it's not going to work. Because there are people who don't want to talk. And I can't force them to. And I'm not just going to make stuff up to put in there. So that wasted some time. Also, I was in the middle of a project with Nick Redfern. And Redfern got called to go and deal with his dad. And there's nothing I can do. So those 2 were the books, the UAP and the MK Ultra. It's a kick in the butt, but what do? You keep going because we're PRT strong, right? Because with you, anything is possible. With God's blessing, He allows us. He gives us the air in our lungs. He allows us to live. I woke up today. I do what I always do. I did my breathing, took a cold shower. Somebody asked me about how many minutes to take the cold shower. I do 6 to 7 minutes in ice cold water. If you can't handle that, don't do it. Don't do it. If you feel like you can't hold your breath, don't do it. On a good day, I can hold my breath almost 3 minutes. Sometimes I can only do a minute and a half, especially starting out because I'm like, the oxygen's not in my blood. But it does help. And all you got to do is look up Wim Hof and go to beginners. Wim Hof, WIMHOF, 2 words. Now, I wouldn't suggest doing what he does, like sticking your head in ice water and holding your breath. I wouldn't do that for nothing. But if you want to be healthier, there's supplements. We have a group, holistic healing group that Nellie created along with the prayer group Nellie created. Nellie's a creator. She's a badass. And I'm glad that she's my wife. A lot of people are trashing her and attacking her right now. You know why? Because she's a she-wolf and she's defending me. My family and my friends aren't letting you get to me. But I'm not one to sit back in the shadows and just go, oh, you'll fight for me. I'm the armchair general. No, that's not me. But what I'm not going to do is give you all the airtime that you want. I'm not going to say your names because you don't deserve it. You don't deserve it. So I'm going to do my best to not even bring it up. Leave it on the social media. That's what we're going to do. That's where it belongs. We're not going to bring it up. I will say this. I am at peace with AI. I wish them all the best. I am currently, I believe, still at peace with the other guy up in Oklahoma. But that's up to him. If the fighting resumes on social media, it's up to him. The ball is in his court. I'm not going to mention his name. So, I'm going to move on. This other guy wants to make his reappearance. I don't really care. Do what you want. Accusing us of going into groups with fake accounts to attack you. Dude, any Bible you want, I put my hand on there. I do not use fake accounts to attack anyone. I don't have time. I have 2 Facebook accounts. One of them is of the Crusader. That's the profile pic, and the other one is of me standing in front of a wallpaper that's covered in bananas because life is bananas, right? And that's because Facebook was banning me for every little thing at one point, and I said, well, I need to make another account. So I don't hardly use that one. If you send me a message, go to the other one. I will be making an account on Facebook just for people, so don't be surprised if you end up with a friend request. Just for people. I don't think you give friend requests. I don't know if you do on that one. I think it's for people to follow you because I'm going to be doing comedy on there because I do stand-up sometimes. And if you've been to my conferences, you'll see me. I do in between guests, I'm joking, laughing, doing a stand-up routine, basically. It's in my blood. It's what I do. I love to joke. I've been in some very harrowing situations and I'm laughing and joking because what can you do? Stressing isn't going to make it go away. It's not going to make it any better. And you're not going to change people from who they are, their true nature. And I'm not going to do that. It's not going to happen. Pray all you want. And, they can attack all they want. Attack my shows. Attack all you want. We'll make more. There'll just be more material. It'll keep coming. And unlike some people, I don't use fake AI generated bull crap. I bring you what I get. And I think a lot of you are aware of that. I think you know that. There are a lot of people in these fields. I'd say there's 3 fields: cryptid, UFO, and ghost. And then the rest are just splinters and offshoots of those 3 fields. And in those fields, I am friends with a lot of people that have big names in the field. And it's not slowing them down. They're not stopping. They're not. These people are calling me every kind of name in the book, and they're like, "Oh well, who the hell are they?" To be honest with you, most of the people, the people that I deal with, they didn't even know these people existed. And their ticket to stardom, I guess, was attacking me. So what? You can go back and say, "Oh yeah, I fought with that guy." Well, I got to tell you, there were a lot of people back in the day that fought with me downtown too. They didn't win, but they can say they fought me. They can say that they fought me. They can say that, yeah, I got my jaw broke by him. Such a thing to be proud of, I guess. Didn't win. And these people won't win. I mean, doesn't matter at the end of the day. How you will judge a winner or a loser in a war is how many people have you lost that have fallen off? How many people, how much money have you hemorrhaged in your quest for being number one? How many projects do you have coming to fruition? If you're a massive brand and you have all these things under your belt, why do you need to fight with little old me? I mean, if you outweigh me by 8 times, you have 8 times the subscribers. Why would I be worth your time? I can understand the other channels punching up, but why would you bother punching down unless you're not as big as you say you are? And by constantly attacking, you're kind of proving that point. It doesn't matter. I learned something that even if I stop and I don't retaliate, he's going to continue. Like there was nothing going on, and then all of a sudden this big salvo and this huge offensive that took place was coordinated for sure, and they all launched it at one time. And that I knew that they were all talking, it's a conspiracy against me. Only one of those channels chose to not participate and said, I'm not going to be a part of it. And to their credit, AI did not. Now, there's one person out there who continued the drama and would not stop, but she was the only one. And that to me spoke volumes of that person, and that he was committed to not doing it. The other people did what they did, and then one of them said, okay, I accept your apology, and he said, that's it. What I want going forward is to never speak these people's names again. I don't want the war. Every now and then, we'll do things differently. Every now and then, like this. This is a case in point. This is a very beautiful piece. That's not my normal piece right there. Every now and then, I like to wear a little bit of something different. My wife gave me that, and I cherish it. She's given me two rings that are, well, three, but really two that I really love. And that was one of them. This was her ring. She likes white gold, but she wears that one. And then she says, I want to give this to you. And I look at it, it's very small. And I said, what am I going to do with this? She says, it's a pinky ring. I said, oh, okay. Yeah. So sometimes you just do things differently. My shirt today, Flash Gordon. Who doesn't love Flash Gordon, right? Every day I try to bring you the best that I have. And I'm going to continue to do that. And the music is off the chain. It's going to get better and better. The song sung by Michael Spencer, very, very good, talented. Violet Helm, very talented artist. And I'm glad that they were willing to sing our songs. The guy from Australia sang the Mummy one. It's a really good song. Go check that out. They're all going to be on Paranormal Sound Table. The board game, we still have to do the final testing phase. We're getting close. We need to launch, and that's going to happen too. The conference, the third one. If you haven't been paying attention, you haven't seen up to this point that we are not full of crap. We're not. The real deal Holyfield. I didn't step into this to be a con artist, a liar, a fraud, a hoaxer. I didn't get into this field to be a grifter. The first year, we didn't make any money. I just paid to play. And I was approached by a couple of these ding-dongs, and they came in and threatened me, basically. And I said, look, guys, I don't know you. I'm not involved in your war with this guy. And that guy didn't even defend me. And he doesn't defend his listeners. So they were able to just run roughshod over everybody and do what they wanted without any real response. So I felt like, if you come at me, well, I'm giving it to you with both barrels. I'm not going to play around, dude. You come on my porch talking about me, talking about my family, whatever. And then I realized that's not the right approach. These people thrive on this crap. Because at the end of the day, they got nothing going on. It's all fake. So they have to have drama. They have to have drama. They have to have something to prop them up because their lives are empty. So all you can do is starve them of oxygen and pray for them. So going forward, Debbie Cawthra. So can we sing at the conference? Sure, if you got the voice for it. But if you don't, be careful. I don't want people going boo. I can't control the audience. Brianna, thank you for that. That's sweet. Thank you for everybody who's here listening. Thank you for not being judgmental and cruel and saying mean and nasty things and acting like medieval savages, which a lot of these people do. And I'm not even talking about these people we're fighting with. I was in a chat the other day and I was watching this guy talk, and I have very little time in the day that I can dedicate to reading a book. I've been reading a couple of David Weatherly's books, trying to read them, finishing up one of Lyle's books. They're really good friends of mine, and I want to read their books, and Josh Cutchin's book, and start getting into Josh Linocchio's book. These are all really dear friends of mine, and so I wanted to do that. And also Garetano, he's a very good friend of mine, his book. And of course, I owe it to Barton to read Mysterious Kentucky too. And Barton, I'm trying. But I did finish Mysterious Kentucky 1. I did. Yes, that is done. Check mark. So I thought I got a lot to read. But then I have a friend who's got a YouTube channel, and I would like to promote him. I'll promote him at another time because there was a thing on his channel. I don't want to say it because I don't want people thinking that's what's going on there, because it's not. But the chat got a little bit nutty. And I'm like, oh, this is, come on, people quoting the Bible, not even correctly either, and attacking the people that were talking. And I'm just like, sound like a bunch of medieval buffoons, always screaming that everybody's a witch. Why don't we save that for somebody who really is a heretic, a bad person? The Antichrist will be here, soon enough. You don't need to keep pushing that everybody's the Antichrist and always talking about how much you believe in God and how much you love God. That's great. You're, perfect. Good for you. Wonderful. But just because someone doesn't believe like you doesn't mean that they deserve to be attacked by you because you believe that you're right. There is so much going on in this world. So much happening. So much you could be doing. Your energy should be somewhere else. I'm going to confess something to you guys. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I haven't really had much time to dedicate toward defending myself or fighting whatever. Others are doing that. And I didn't ask them that. I did not ask them for help. I didn't ask them to make videos. I'm not a part of them. And I've asked for them to keep my name out of it. Now, if they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. I don't have time to go and watch everything that everybody does or police the internet. And I damn sure don't have time to go watch my enemies' channels that they've turned into the Josh Turner, attack or whatever. I look at it like this, and this is what I'm going to say about it. When I've had a little bit of time to myself, I've tried to just take my little slice of time and pray. Try to reflect on things that I could do better, that I've done and it weren't correct. And when I'm not doing that, I like to be with my animals. I pet them, I play with them. I like to watch my fish. I sit there, and my family can attest to this. I look at my fish for an hour, whatever, just looking and relaxing, trying not to have anxiety. I have anxiety, but I don't let it conquer me. I don't let it take me. I fight back. I go into my peaceful place. I read, and every now and then I'll watch someone's channel if I have time. And every now and then I'll get into a series and I'll start enjoying it and watching it. And sometimes I'm so zoned out, I don't even know what I just watched. But I don't have a lot of time to myself. So when I do have time to do something other than my job and the show, it's a blessing, and it's very minuscule. Most of my time is eaten up by encounters from people and doing the show for you. I put my heart, my soul, my blood, sweat, and tears into this show and to all my endeavors. And then I get attacked because, oh, you know, you talked about people helping out and with the channel, with Patreon, or, you know, doing a donation or merchandise. The biggest slap in the face you could possibly imagine for a channel that we do everything free, nothing behind a paywall, and we're at your mercy to help us or not help us. And then I had a guy tell me, he says, well, you know, he's like, you have all that gold on and you have a nice job, you have a career. Why do you need people to pay you for what you do? And I thought that is the most ridiculous statement in the world. I worked my tail off for every bit of everything that I got. Nothing was handed to me. Nothing was handed to me. And if I took back every penny of everything that I've done for the betterment of our world, I'd be a very, very, very rich man. But to me, anything you can donate toward helping something that's good, something that you like, something that you enjoy and is good, that's money well spent. I do it all the time. When I'm watching someone's show, I always try to help out. I donate. To the other channels that I'm friends with, I donate money. Now, my enemies accuse me of paying them to be my ally, and that's a lie. I didn't even have to go and ask them to back me up or to say anything to anybody. And there's never been a coordinated, let's all go meet at the watering hole while someone talks bad about someone and let's all back them up. No, that's never happened. They say it did, they're lying. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that there's enough liars out there to go around and that will say things like that, but that's not true. I never told anybody to go to someone's show and whatever other than to support them and help them. I never set any of them other channels up to talk bad about any of my enemies and never asked them to. Not once have I gone to any other channel, whether it's Barton or Hellbent Holler or Mad Imps's channel or Blondes and Booze, you name it, pick one, and told them, hey, talk bad about these other people for me. They, like me, have better things to do with their time than to fight battles for me. I'm a big boy, and I'm well capable of defending myself. Now, many, and I'm telling you this, the honest truth, of my close friends, whether they were authors, podcasters, YouTubers, researchers, or people who have large, very large Facebook groups, have offered support. And I said, if you feel like supporting me, then you support me. But every one of them can attest to this. Every one of them will tell you this. I told them it's in your best interest to stay out of this because you will be attacked. These people don't care. And I don't want to see you get attacked and go through what I'm going through because I wouldn't wish this on you. Ask anybody in private. I challenge you. And they will tell you I told them that. Stay out of it. Stay on the sidelines. Watch what happens. I'm a big boy, and I can fight all of these people by myself with no help. And it can go on and on and on and on. I don't care. I have the energy of 10 men. I don't care. Been doing this for years. The other night, I laid it out there. I was in tears, but I laid it out there. Now you know where I come from and what I'm made of. I'm not bragging, just being honest. If there were 10 of me, I could take over this whole country and do the right thing and lead us in the right direction. But the problem is the deck is stacked against people like me. It always has been and always will be. I'm under no illusions that they're going to keep coming. It's going to get worse. But we're going to weather the storm together. And the best thing we can do now, you can't ignore cancer. You have to cut it out. But the best thing we can do right now for this particular group of people is just to not give them any more oxygen and let them starve. Because I've noticed from watching them and their patterns, I don't watch their shows, they need us. We don't need them. And you better wise up because you're going to get left behind. Because a bunch of fake nonsense and a bunch of trash talk isn't going to have people looking at you very fondly when the people you're trashing are doing big, better things than you are. People are going to look at you like you're wearing a big red nose and big floppy clown shoes, like my friend said. And stop this nonsense of fighting with me because that's not possible for you. That would be very bad for you. So, like I said, they stay in their corner of bizarro world. We do what we do. We're fine. Right? And that's it. Looking at some of these comments here. Everybody who is sick, there's a lot of people with the vid right now. A lot of people have the flu. Hope everybody gets better. Just pray. Pray for each other. Let's take care of each other. We're a community here. We're a family. We're going to keep doing what we're going to do. Thank you for that donations, Two Shadows. Be at the next conference, folks, because I'm doing this conference for all the people who said that they didn't make it to the last two. So this is it. I believe in a three-peat. We'll do the three-peat. That's it. Don't think I can do another one. This has got to be it. So show up at this one, because if you miss it, well, I can't tell you there's going to be another one. And it was really, really hard. Being honest, it was hard for me and Ken to even convince each other to do this, because he was like, do you want to do another one? I was like, yeah, well, no. And after the second one, we were like, no, we're not going to do it. And I mean, for months, I had that mindset because of all the drama that came out after this last one. And then I thought about it and I thought, well, I'm going to announce that I'm going to do another one because it gets under their skin. But we're going to do it because it gets under their skin. And I want to do it for my listeners who didn't get to make the first two. So if you want to do this, let's get serious about it and let's do it. All right. We're probably going to do a Friday evening and a Saturday. And we're not going to do we may or may not do a VIP thing. We may just do something, and give me your input. We got a little bit of time about how you want to maybe go about doing this. Just one ticket across the board, get you the Friday night and the Saturday. Okay. The Friday night will just be the speakers will come in and we'll start it in the evening, maybe about 6 o'clock, and have 2 or 3 presentations on Friday night, and then have from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. the next day, a late conference all the way into the evening. Now, everybody's like, oh, you'll never be able to do that. But we already did it the first one. The last speaker was on at 8:30. Then they said, you'll never be able to do 2 days. Nobody's ever been able to do a big conference on a Sunday. People always leave and the conference is half empty on a Sunday, or if there's barely anybody there at all. Then we did it, and Sunday was packed. Even at the beginning, it was a little hairy because people weren't showing up. And everybody was like, yeah, well, we knew this was going to happen. And I'm like, knew what? That people are going to show up late? And they did. And we were there till 8 o'clock on Sunday. So now I'm telling you that I want to go all the way till 9, 10 on Saturday, and everybody's going to say, oh, yeah, I can't do that. Blah, 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 blah. Watch what happens. We swung for the fences twice, and we did it both times. Now, I'd be lying if I told you that I knew everything was just going to work out like that. There were doubts. I had my doubts. And there were people rooting against us. But I did. I said we were going to win big, and write it down. We're going to win big, and we did. The books are going to keep coming. Everything's going to keep good. The music's going to keep coming. You're not stopping us. All the bad talk and the whatever curses, whatever. Shut up. You're never going to win. I don't know what he said there. Let's see what it say. Wolf, do what is the least stressful for you guys, going to be a big hit regardless. We will. It'll work out. Trust me. Now, tomorrow, I got some stuff. I got some Dogman for you tomorrow. Somebody asked me this, and they called me out. They said, sometimes you put Dogman in the title, and you barely talk about Dogman. I said, that's because it's all connected. By this point, you should kind of know what Dogman is. If you don't, you're not paying attention, or at least have some sort of idea. Solovino, BYOB. We didn't have booze at the last conference. We didn't sell booze or anything like that. But I don't know. I don't. You know, I don't know anybody that brought booze either. But you know, there'll be probably a big party afterwards, especially if Barton and the gang from Tennessee and Kentucky come. There's going to be a big festival there at the same time we're going to have our conference, which should be a lot of fun. If you guys want to stick around and go do that, you know, after the conference, like on Sunday, because I'm not going to do it on Sunday, more than likely, because it's like Madeline says, less stressful for me and for the people involved. But Worst Fest will be going on in New Braunfels. So we may end up doing it in San Marcos, but we may do it in New Braunfels. I don't know, somewhere in between, you know. It'll be between the metropolitan areas of San Antonio and Austin, which are quickly becoming one long, big city. And so that's where it'll be. And you'll have two different airports to fly in from, Austin or San Antonio. My goal right now is to do it in New Braunfels, but I can move it to San Marcos or even to one of the other smaller outlying cities, Buda or Kyle, which easily you can get to from either San Antonio or Austin. So I was looking at the conference center in Shirts too. I thought that was an interesting place. That was where the Lone Star Paracon was, and it seemed to be a pretty good facility. And I was taking a look at that, and so I may look into that too. But regardless, I'm hoping, and I'm not hoping, but I'm hoping that this is it for me, at least for a little while. I'm probably going to take a year, maybe two off from conferences because I'm just not. It's a lot of work, man, and it takes a lot away from what I'm trying to do. So yeah, I got things I got to take care of. Solovino, tickets will be sold. We'll probably do it through Eventbrite again, and they'll be going on sale within the next week or two. Once we get this venue set up and established, and then we know exactly where we're going to do it at. Being close to San Antonio has its pluses too, because if you want to go to San Antonio on Sunday and go and check it out, it's a wonderful city. It's my second favorite city in the entire country. And I will say this, you know, like I said before, Worst Fest will be in town in New Braunfels, and it's a lot of fun. So, you know, a lot of beer and bratwurst and whatever, you know. Amy Krill, yes, you're right. Absolutely right. So that's it, folks. I'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. This was awesome. We had a great time. And those of you who were paying attention, yes, we got in the deep water like we're supposed to be. That's where I float. Some people aren't comfortable with that, and it's okay. You know, you just want to stick to the stories of the cryptids and ghosts and whatever, or maybe not ghosts. Some people are scared of ghosts. Some people tell me they love my ghost stories, but they're not into the whole cryptid thing. And then some people say, I love when you talk about the alien agenda and the UFOs and all that. And then other people say, yeah, I'm not really my cup of tea. Well, we're here for everybody. Paranormal Roundtable, go look at the logo. I have a guy I've commissioned to make us a big burned sign. They burn the wood into it, the carving. And because the people who had made me one before, I cannot remember who it was that sent it to me. I get so much stuff. But and if it's nice and it comes out good, I'm going to show it on the show and I'm going to promote his work. I also have a very good friend of mine making me a hat. And I'm going to promote him. If it comes out good, which I hope it will, we're old friends. So, promoting people, doing what you should be doing, helping each other out as brothers and sisters. Treat everybody good. Try it. It might just make you feel good about yourself. Good night and God bless.